Yo, 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 what is going on, everybody? This is Dragon Durant of the Yasuhiro0088, and tonight we're gonna be starting. I don't know if I would call it the first. We've kind of did it during the birthday stream with a large cast of guests, but tonight we're gonna be focusing a bit more on D&D, tabletop RPGs, talking behind the screen and going into some topics with some of my fellow VTuber GMs that I've discovered along the way. There's plenty of us out there. There's many more sessions like this that we could perhaps do in the near future, but this is going to be the first and we're going to kick it off. So hope you're all ready. And before we do, let's real quick switch over to our window here. Ooh, look at that. Pretty moves. Now, I'm going to have all of our guests introduce themselves shortly, but all of their links are in the description, so do check them out, give them a follow, give them your Prime subscriptions, do what you need to do. Most of them are over on Twitch. But with that, let's get all of our guests in. Is everyone here?
Yeah.
Yup.
No.
No.
I'm not.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right,
Absolutely
perfect.
not. Why would I ever be here?
Why would you? Why would you? What is existence really? All right. Well, let's do a quick round of introductions. I already kind of said hello. My name is Dragon Durant. I run the Yasuhiro0088 channel out here on YouTube. And I think just to avoid anyone, everyone talking all at once, we're going to actually have everyone go through just a brief little dice roll. Let's roll for initiative and see who's going to introduce themselves first.
Oh, dice rolls.
Dice
okay.
rolls. This is a session of D&D, but not D&D. You're going to be rolling tonight.
So do I get to add my dex modifier?
No.
Cool, because it's
So-
negative anyway. Okay.
They're a dig.
So you remember these dice I mentioned, these D20s that have fuck for 1 and yeah, for 20. I just got it, yeah.
Yeah. Let's go.
Well, I got a 9, so I'm going pretty late.
Oh, I got an 8. Oh no. I
Get
don't want to go.
fucked.
No.
Get shit on. I'm sorry.
Boop, what did you say?
I got a 9.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Very fun. So we're going to go with our Mr. Nat 20 over here, Zabiel. Why don't you introduce yourself? Where can people find you? And what was I going to say? Brain fart already. Yeah. Where can people find you? And also what got you into D&D?
How's it going, everybody? I am Asbiel, the Guildmaster of the Guild of Legends, located in the heart of the multiverse. You get my full intro because I'm not streaming this, but deal with it. You can find me on Twitch, where I stream mostly video games right now, but I'm looking to kind of transition to some more tabletop RPG stuff soon. That is twitch.tv/Azabiel, and on Twitter at Azabiel_GM. I got how to get started in D&D and such. I mean, got roped into it by an older sibling when I was a lot younger. Didn't know what I was doing, was just there to throw dice and have someone tell me what it means. And then it kind of hibernated for a long time until D&D 5e started blowing up across the internet so wildly. And like a lot of people, Critical Role kind of pulled me into it. Fell into that because I was a fan of the people, the voice actors on it, and then just decided to give D&D a try, and didn't know anyone in person, so I went to Reddit, and there I met some weird people, like this one spaceman who's always wearing a helmet, flying a ship around and whatnot. If it wasn't clear, that spaceman is Dragon Durant Yasuhiro0088. Yeah, I think that kind of settles it for me.
Well, if no one else is gonna go.
What did everyone else roll? We just know we have a 9, an 8,
Yeah.
and a 20.
I rolled a 2.
I heard everyone. I just happened to be muted, but yeah.
Oh my
awesome.
god. It was like a moment of silence and all of us were just
My bad, my bad. Too many buttons, too many things I'm keeping track of. But next up, Boopbot.
Cool. I guess I can go.
You rolled a 9. What do you mean you guess you can go? You're next.
Hi there. I am Boopbot. I do Dungeons and Dragons, and I think I have a personality behind that, but I'm not sure.
That smile on your character goes so well with the I'm not sure.
But other than that, I do a lot of different things. I can do singing every once in a while. I can do gaming, and I sort of came into D&D playing in high school. I was really one of the nerdier, isolated kids because I was just bad at social interaction. Still am, and I kind of used D&D as a way for me to get better at it. I discovered D&D not through Critical Role, ironically enough, but through Dimension 20. And Brendan Lee Mulligan is still one of my favorite DMs ever. Yeah.
Very fun, very fun. Yeah, Dimension 20. I actually learned about them more recently, but more on that later as well. Next up, we have Galaxy Jamwich.
Oh boy. Hello, my name is Galaxy Jamwich, also known as Jammy. I am an alien VTuber who has come and flown into your Earthling's orbit to learn about your culture through video games. And I do occasionally DM and play D&D as well. I don't host D&D on my Twitch all that much, except for when I hosted a month-long D&D celebration, or just like project or hangout, I guess, on March, and that's going to be happening again this coming March, so pretty excited for that. A lot of big plans coming up. My experiences with D&D, I actually didn't start, well, I mean, I always like roleplayed, you know, mostly on like DeviantArt forums and that sort of thing. So that was my first kind of intro into role-playing and whatnot. But I didn't learn about D&D until, and it's funny enough, not through like Dimension 20 or Critical Role or all of those shows, but actually through a YouTuber, a big YouTuber back then known as Pro Jared, who did like this D&D December. And I watched those videos, like, holy crap, it's role playing, but like super like in-depth role playing and all that stuff. I was like, wow, that's really cool. So I got into that and tried doing D&D online at first with like a bunch of like people I didn't know, because I mean none of my friends played D&D and all that back then, and that was a interesting experience. But eventually, come college, I got into D&D again when I first started watching Critical Role, and that just like reawakened that old like sense of, wow, D&D is amazing and it's so cool and fun. And I was like, okay, if no one wants to, oops, sorry, my throat's like scratching up right now. But if no one wants to play D&D, I'll just DM and take over. And yeah, that's my whole like quick D&D journey. Was there anything else I missed in terms of questions?
No, that's good. Awesome, man.
Oh, nice.
We're not going to get
Also
into
based outlook.
yeah, right. Yeah, I'm sure that resonates with quite a few of us here at least. But yeah, introductions. Last up, we have Lady Glacier.
Hey, I am Lady Glacier, Ice Queen VTuber. I'm on Twitter and Twitch mostly. I don't really have a whole bunch of D&D content yet, but I have DM'd a whole bunch because most of my friends don't like DMing. So if we want to play, I usually have to do it. So
That's a vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey, if you ever need experience as a player, I have too many campaigns. Please, send help.
But the other reason why they like me DMing so much is because I rolled a 2 here, and that is a representation of actually how I normally roll in real life as well. So
Yeah.
I roll like shit. So usually when I'm a player, I'm having a bad time. So, but if I'm DMing, they're having a great time. So.
Yeah, whenever your players gift you weighted dice, right? I mean, or you
Exactly.
buy it yourself. It's weighted the wrong way though.
I fucking wish I had weighted dice. I roll too damn high too often.
Ooh, you got that GM privilege rolls there.
I wish the only reason my chat. Okay, never mind. We can just say this.
All right. Well, hell yeah. So real quick, everyone here, I believe, has played D&D, right? I think that's a pretty
I think
core.
so.
No,
game.
never heard of it.
Never
at
heard of
all.
it. First
No.
time. Yeah. But here's a quick question for all
What
of
are
you.
dragons?
What are dragons? Good question. Are they like clouds? But what other modules have you guys played? What other systems? Anything that you guys specifically are big fans of or you want to shout out? Much of tonight is going to be more D&D focused, as that's kind of the common ground in the tabletop RPG space these days. But yeah, what do you guys think?
Okay, so I actually have a couple actually because Dungeons and Dragons wasn't my first DMing. When I DM'd first, it was actually it's like an old school Marvel RPG that didn't last long. I think it lasted for like the book series itself for like 2 years or something like that. But it had a really weird mechanics to it because you didn't roll dice, you used stones. Like you would gain energy per turn.
What?
And you would select the amount of energy you wanted to put into like an ability or attack or some sort of skill. But there wasn't like everyone didn't have any turns either. It was like we all played at once. So everyone set up what abilities they were going to be using with the amount of energy that they had. And then it would get locked in, and then the GM would tell them what actually happened.
Interesting. It's almost gosh, what was it? There's that one system that you play with like fudge dice. That was very, I feel like that's very similar, where it's like the dice more so dictate the series of events, or I guess the outcome of the series of events, and then it's all kind of concluded by the GM running it. But as soon as you mentioned stones, and my mind immediately went to, oh, what is this? Like an energy system? You play Mancala? Much like there's that
Yeah,
system where
that's
you
what
play
I thought for a
Jumanji,
moment.
or not Jumanji, Jenga.
Ayo,
Yeah,
a
it's kind
Jenga
of
RPG sounds kind of lit, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
it's kind of like that because like say that you have like 8 energy, so you can figure out what you're doing, and then when the next round happened, you only recovered a certain amount of them, but you could also like not spend them, so you can save your points to do something bigger later.
Okay. Interesting.
It's really weird, but the game's really broken, like very, very broken, because it's very broad. Because if you know anything about like Marvel, you have like people that are just spies, and then you
Yeah.
have gods.
Mhm.
So it's really hard to come up with a system that's balanced to make that work.
Yeah.
That could be an issue, yeah. It's like Hawkeye versus Thor. Who wins?
Well, you know who would win.
It was a rhetorical
Clearly,
question.
Hawkeye wins.
Clearly,
Let's be honest.
What else you guys got? Anything that you've played before?
I don't necessarily have a system per se, more of a reworking of 5e because I'm very familiar with 5e. That's really all I have touched in my couple of years of experience running games. But there is something called Star Wars 5e that I've been using
Yeah.
and wanting to use a lot more. It is effectively a reworking of some of the 5th edition rules to fall under a more sci-fi banner, particularly Star Wars, which works very well because it is a traditionally like a sci-fi fantasy setting and story, so it all kind of works out. And I've been enjoying the shit out of it, and I think that more people should as well.
Very neat.
Yeah.
Now, I think I know of a Star Wars system back when I was at playing at a hobby shop. Is this the system
No,
where they
no.
have their own dice system, or is this just like a
No,
flavor
it is
reflavor?
It is a massive reflavor and rework of a lot of things in 5th edition. Some of which I like, some of which I don't.
Okay.
But it's different and very, very thoroughly done. And I think it's worth more people checking it out.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool.
I'm familiar with that one. I have been wanting to do something with it for a long time. Just haven't ever gotten around to it.
I've mostly been able to run one-shots with it. Well, a one-shot that turned into like a mini 2-session campaign. But yeah, it was a spaceship. It was basically the intro scene of Star Wars, except instead of Darth Vader invading, it was what the fuck? It was a bounty hunter, and yeah, it was very fun.
Neat.
They were trying to escape with some find classified files within the ship's reactor room, extract them, make sure that the system was clean, and then get the fuck out with this sensitive information through escape pods. And I thought that was really, really fun.
Yeah, that's a neat way to start the game. You kind of put everyone in the proverbial space tavern, basically.
Yeah, except the ship is exploding.
Yeah. There's you immediately get some intrigue and some dry call to action, basically. So yeah, that's a way to start the game. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Done one of those once.
Nice.
Right now, I'm running a one-shot on the 5th that has some, because it's like so close to 5e, it's very easy to like pull aspects in and out, and that's why I really like it. I'm having an raid Area 51 one-shot, and I have a player who's using the sniper subclass for the rogue, and it is worth, even if you only consider it to be an expansion, it is worth more people checking out, and I highly recommend people check it out.
Right on. As Jamie, anything you guys have experienced or dabbled in?
I've only played 5e D&D. I think that's just mostly because I personally still feel pretty new to the tabletop RPG spectrum.
Sure. 5e is quite large, and I think that is where, as it was mentioned earlier, a lot of the player base kind of really boomed and got started with 5e just because it's so approachable, right?
Yeah,
For sure.
I mean, it's not the most complicated game, but it's also not super simple either. You can break the game to shit if you really want to.
All right.
Um, I've dabbled in a number of things. Like I said, when I was a lot younger, we played using a system called Fusion. I couldn't tell you anything about Fusion. I was like, I don't know, what, 6 or something? I was too young
6?
to be a functioning person.
Aw.
I was definitely too young to be a functioning person at the time. So I just remember I was a halfling and I had a knife and I wanted to be like the guy from Record of Lodoss War. which I don't even remember that show well enough to even fully know who I'm talking about. I just remember that as a character inspiration. But more recently, a lot of my TTRPG stuff experience came in the last 8 or so years.
Only 8 years.
There's some people. I run a game right now for 2 guys who played in like 2nd edition, 1st edition stuff. Like these they're the OGs. But I've dabbled with the Fate system. Did kind of I was a player because if I'm ever trying a new system, I want to try it first as a player because I'm that kind of person. 5e was the exception, also 4. But we did like a Mass Effect little. I didn't stick with the campaign because of scheduling conflicts that came up, but we were doing a Mass Effect campaign using the Fate system, and that was really cool while I played it. Also, I'm a huge fan of Pathfinder 2nd edition, not a huge fan of Pathfinder 1st edition. I think 2nd edition approaches the it's built more kind of on the approachability of like 5e, but still has enough complexity to where you get options when you level up, and your skills aren't 100% locked in from level 1 and stuff like that. And 5e, there's ways to around these things, but generally, at level 1, you kind of set yourself on a path. But also a ton of reworkings, reflavorings, all that good stuff for 5th edition. There's a kind of sci-fi, kind of Mass Effect inspired one that I really like called Espergenesis. Real big fan of that one because I just love Mass Effect, and it's very clearly heavily inspired by that. Also Star Wars 5e, like Boopbot mentioned, but other things like Journey to Ragnarok is a cool one because I think Norse mythology is cool, and it's just 5e but Viking.
Man, you dabbled quite a bit.
Yeah, there's others too. But I was actually just looking at my shelf, and I was like, you know what, maybe we don't mention Hyperlights and Hellscapes. Those kind of burned out some disappointments in the end, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There's good stuff in those books. There's always good stuff in any books you get for any kind of TTRPG, but largely they were handled poorly. Ultramodern 5 is another one I want to mention. As the name suggests, it's kind of a modern D&D take. There was D20 Modern, which was a thing for kind of a general D20 but like fantasy modern situation. But this is kind of the newer take on it. It's built on 5e, but you've got a wide range. It covers everything from cowboys with 6 shooters and older style firearms and stuff like that to future tech like laser guns, all that good stuff. So it's a cool, complicated 5e rework. So if you're down for a little bit more reading, a little bit more learning, then it's something cool to check out if you want that kind of modern feel.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, and I'm hearing a lot of 5e mixed in there, so it sounds like a lot of them have taken inspiration from just the base 5e and kind of evolved it. So very neat.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we're already a little bit behind our planned schedule, at least, but let's switch it. Let's switch. I know already.
Fuck the schedule. This is
Fuck the
D&D.
schedule.
When is
Yeah.
the schedule ever?
True. But let's switch gears a little bit. So, talking about, we're going to be doing a lot of GM talk tonight, and we're going to get into topics later covering more kind of what's going on behind the screen, how GMs prepare, right? I'd like to hear everyone's kind of experience with that and the do's and don'ts. But before we do, a little message to anyone looking to play D&D or looking to get in for the first time. I think we kind of teased a little bit through how we all started, right? But for example, I started back in going to a local hobby shop. I would always go there because I was into board games. eventually. I'd be there frequently enough where every Wednesday I'd see just tables outside loaded with people playing this tabletop game, and I'm like, what the hell is this? I knew about D&D, but yeah, took that plunge, and then that divulged into looking for an online game where I met Azabiel, and then now here I am running a game every Sunday as a VTuber. But yeah, what about you all? What would you say to players looking to get in? I'd say just go for it. It's actually quite enjoyable, and if you can't get the vibe from these four here, they're always down to pull players in. A couple of them even may even consider it like an addiction. It's like,
Please,
give
God.
me. Do you have more players? Do you have more players?
It's definitely a thing where if someone is thinking about it, absolutely go for it. Like, just there are so many avenues to take. Like you said, you know, local game stores are a great option. There's always going to be someone some day of the week playing, you know, some sort of tabletop RPG. It's also a good opportunity to try out other board games if you know aren't already a board gamer or a card gamer, and you've got the money to spend on buying those packs, man.
Those damn
Those
packs.
miniatures.
But
Mother-
yeah, also online, you know,
Yes.
for me and Dragon, I assume, you know, Reddit was kind of the course. It was the path of least resistance that I found. But now you've got D&D Beyond, which I think it was just starting, or it was very new when I started playing 5e. But they've got the forums where they've got an LFG section. There's
They've
Reddit
also
r/LFG.
They've also
Go
been
ahead.
bought by Wizards of the Coast recently, so that's
true.
You can probably
That's true.
expect some better integration. Fucking finally. But that's great. No, I totally didn't buy all the books physically, and simply beyond I can't. No, why would that? No, I'm not, I'm
The
not-
trauma-
I'm
the
not
trauma's
fucking
kicking in.
salty at all.
Oh god.
I would also suggest checking out the. You mentioned Wizards of the Coast. Check out the you know, the official Discord channels. They've got a LFG section in there as well. And if you're trying any of these, you know, kind of third-party conversions like Asper Genesis or Star Wars 5e, check out their Discords too. You're bound to find people who want to play.
Neat.
Yeah.
I'm actually
That or,
gonna.
you know, you just grab some of your best buds and
Go the
try it that way.
Just shove some dice in their
I
hand.
Yeah.
bullet
Tie him
and
to a
play a
chair.
DM and DM. All right, fucking
Yeah.
do it.
Please DM.
Just
We need more.
DM.
Just do it.
Just bite the bullet. It's fine. It'll suck for like the planning phase, but when you're actually running there and you get to see all your friends having a good time, I promise you it'll be worth it. And some of you fuckers will be masochists like me who actually prefer it to being a player.
I'm with you
I-
there sometimes.
I think that's a good message. I might have worded it slightly differently, like give it a shot.
Go
You know?
for it.
But absolutely, the
I'm a man of
message
the
behind the
people.
words is the same. Just do it. Go for it.
Just
Exactly.
It's gonna be good.
And like honestly, your first session is always going to be scuffed. Like you, especially if it's your very first as a DM, you know. So there's no pressure. It's just you and a bunch of people who just want to have fun and like roll dice and do math in your head for some reason.
oh yeah.
I will
totally
even
didn't chill
say
when
that
I played such a one.
I have made every single mistake as a DM for my first campaign
Oh yeah, same.
ever.
Oh god.
And I made the mistake of inviting too many people at the table
Oh,
because
yeah.
like my first one is like we had 12 people there.
Oh my
and it's-
god.
Yes, I'm telling you.
Why? I couldn't
when-
handle 8.
because I didn't
You
know what I was
tried
doing.
12?
Yes, we had 12.
That's like 6 is my absolute max.
Yeah,
And that's
9 is my
hard.
max.
After that is we've never played that big ever since then. But you know, when everyone, hey, you want to play
That's 2
D&D?
campaigns.
Yes, I
Mhm.
know. And it was a giant. Like I said, I made every single mistake I could possibly make.
Oh, Dios
I-
mío.
Incredible.
It's like, yeah, we could run 12 people.
It'll be
But
fine.
we can't.
No, you can't.
Oh,
You absolutely fucking cannot.
There's
Take that
actually,
challenge.
as the years go by, I actually started comparing, kind of not really comparing. I started using a bit of a metaphor for what D&D reminds me of. I'd love to hear what you guys think, but D&D really reminds me, when it boils down to it, if you were ever a child that like went playing outside with your friends and you did like lightsaber battles, or maybe you did, you know, little played with action figures or something. My memory of those days is that there was no the blending of reality and the fantasy, right? The imagination of it. You as a child enjoyed it in its full capacity. And D&D, if you really kind of get into it, reminds me a lot of that imagination from childhood of like, hey, get into the game, get into your character, and just have a blast with the people around you, whether they're, you know, met virtually or physically, you know, from people you know or people you've met. It's really reminds me of that vibe of, you know, doing those old school lightsaber battles. Like I was a Jedi, I was a, you know, whoever.
Ugh, Jedi.
I feel that.
Absolutely though. Let me tell you, when I was a wee lad in my schooling days, I mean, my family was always, you know, always had computers and stuff around, so I was already a little bit educated in the internet ways and such from a young age. But I kind of indoctrinated all of my like school friends. I would, like, you know, weekends would come around, I'd go to their houses for the weekend and be like, hey, you want to role play? And you know, we'd play D&D without the dice, without the table, without the character sheets, basically, is how it turned out. Maybe we'd look at some Yu-Gi-Oh cards and use those for inspiration for who we were going to be, you know, stuff like that. But no, it was yeah, D&D absolutely taps into that thing that I was always, you know, seeking, that imaginative, creative space as a youth, as a wee lad. Still looking to chase that high these days, but just with D&D now.
Fun. So
I mean, that totally makes sense, because, like, I mean, it's just make believe, but with numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, whoever said that you don't need math when you grow up? Not if you play D&D.
Although that's arithmetic, not necessarily
Little nuance.
algebra.
Shut up.
Okay.
Shut up, Boo. Shut up, Boo. Turn yourself. Reboot.
Oh, you don't want me to do that.
Uh-oh.
Let's just keep things as they are.
All right. So here's a quick question for a few of you, because at least half of us, well, we have two camps here. We have a few of us who do stream D&D. We have
Hi.
one of us that does paid GMing. And Lady Glacier, you do a lot of miniature stuff or model stuff, from what I understand and what we've kind of
Yes.
dabbled in. So I guess that's more three camps. But starting with, I suppose, Jammy and Boop, streaming D&D games, what have been some of the nuanced challenges that have you encountered any challenges that are different streaming games versus playing them in person that you guys can think
Yeah.
of?
Tell me your secrets.
There comes the issue of personal responsibility, that you have to remember that you're not just playing the game, you know.
Yeah.
You have to. I don't interact with chat, and I don't like care about my chat at all during D&D. Sorry, not sorry. And that's fine. But there's also things like, hey, upload your VODs, create thumbnails, make sure that there's like art for the stream so that like each player's characters are represented on stream. For example, I could post something here, but I could post like an example. I like to commission reactive images for my player characters to do when I'm running full campaigns. And I make sure that they're all one unified style, because even though my players are welcome and encouraged to get their own character art,
They can't
is
read your mind.
often- They can't read my mind, yes. And also, it will look incredibly sloppy to have one character be anime, one character
True.
be a shit post, another one looks super cartoony, the other one is like an actual like realistic fantasy Lord of the Rings drawing, and that just, I mean, it works, but it's also like what?
You need
And
some
having
consistency. Yeah.
some sense of consistency to show what people would look like as a unified group helps out a lot. In addition to that, there are the questions of how am I presenting the game correctly? Like, what I've ended up doing is having two different screens, one so that one screen showing my stream view and the other being my DM view. And I've hooked it up so that it can track my my GM view if that's currently what's being focused, or I can set it manually to focus on one thing or another. But truly, the most difficult thing is remembering, hey, dipshit, make thumbnails, upload your VODs, fucking do the bare minimum. Beyond that, it's not too bad.
Yeah. Because
If there is more work that needs to be done, well, that's probably why I haven't grown very much.
Oh, don't say that.
nah, you're
I
doing
haven't
pretty
grown.
good. You got a
Yeah.
steady following. I see well, numbers aside, I see people talking about you in D&D. So you're out there. But Jamie, what was your experience like
Yes.
running games?
Oh,
Streaming
so it kind of just felt the same, like just playing regular D&D in
Yeah.
a way.
I feel that.
There was the big problem of having to balance in between chat and in between, actually DMing, of course. I felt like I kind of had it a little easier because some of my players, like when we did the Price of Beauty campaign that you were in,
Yeah.
Dragon. Yeah, like Lyra and like Ellie and some of the other people were like interacting with chat, making it a lot easier for me
Sure.
in that sense. So, yeah, D&D on stream, it definitely is a lot of prep. I haven't gone as far as Probot here and like getting everyone's like characters all like commissioned and all that, which is honestly really cool, man. That's actually
Yep.
pretty cool. But yeah, it's just
I'm very proud of these. They came out really cool.
yeah, it looks so cool, man.
It brings your
Holy crap.
characters to life.
Can I share them off just for a moment?
Yeah. If you
At
got
least
some
for one of
images
my
here,
campaigns.
I'll pull one in.
This is the Fallen Faithful. This is a campaign that someone that you, Dragon, would know is in, Neff. And this is her character, Nire. Nire of Istris.
Oh damn! You actually got some proper
Gosh.
art.
Oh, wow, that's
Yeah.
that's cute.
Crap.
Cool.
And here are the rest of them.
Here,
I
let
am
me-
very proud of this, and yeah.
Yep, I love that.
Basically, every
That's
cent I
super
make
cool.
off streaming goes back into D&D.
Hell yeah! Trying to figure out how I'm gonna share this. Hold up, guys.
Fantastic.
You gotta see a couple.
Could
of
open
them.
in like open up the original image and then like just show that window.
Yeah.
That's usually how I do it for Discord.
I have a rough idea here. Let's just add a very quick display capture. I have a separate way to do this on my normal overlay, but didn't really account for it here.
Yeah, you didn't think that there might be a chance that maybe, just maybe, I'd want to show something off.
Right? But yeah, you got character here, got character here. So hide that. Actually, better yet, make this full screen. Yeah, look at these, man. Yeah, and I the consistency, right? I think the consistency is important. Having that kind of central look for the party, right? I think it also adds a bit of, I don't know, a bit of a party. What do you call it? It brings unity. Yeah. Look at that.
I like it.
Yeah, it's very cool. Nice. Thanks for sharing.
Little things like that that are actually pretty big in the grand scheme of it. They help out a lot. I see a lot of other D&D streamers do it, and I copied the shit out of them.
Oh, of course. you take good ideas and then you make it your own, you make it better, and you make it work for the way you do things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wait, speaking of my art, I need a fucking link to that. Not in general. I do have it linked in my stream, but I was gonna show it off to someone. I'll do that.
Well,
in the
while
background.
you're
I don't know why I'm
doing that,
mentioning it.
why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience doing paid DMing, paid GMing? Because that's been an avenue I knew existed. I didn't realize how approachable it could be, and you seem to be having a good time with it.
Absolutely. I mean, when I started doing it, it was a huge moment for me. I was all emotional and whatnot. It was fantastic. Because I'd never done anything before. But no, it's interesting because it's a path that is difficult for a lot of people to take, where I can take the thing that I really love doing and I can make a living out of it. You hear about the struggle of artists and stuff like that all the time, because it can be difficult in these creative fields to make a living doing the thing that you love doing. I am very fortunate in that regard, that the thing I love doing is it's one of the biggest things on the internet right now. And yeah, it's absolutely a very approachable thing if you are, if you, I was gonna say if you're ready for it, but what is being ready for DMing? And I was gonna say, what was I gonna say? I lost that second one. It didn't matter anyway. But no, I think it's an incredibly approachable thing, really, because what it came down to at the start is someone threw the idea out there, kind of put the idea in my head, planted the seed. I started looking it up, started doing some research, came across this website that I make use of very largely now, called startplaying.games. They're this website that serves as a platform to bring players and GMs together. It lets you organize your games and find people to participate in them and all that stuff. And also, going out to all these different platforms I mentioned before for people trying to get into the game, going to these places to try to find people, or to find people who are running games like professionally, like I do. Some of these places, like the D&D Beyond forums and stuff like that, also have those listings. But largely, Start Playing Games was kind of the secret ingredient that I needed. Because when I saw that, and I saw how many people they have on their website, how many games are being run through there, all that stuff, it clicked that this was a thing. This was a thing that actually can work. Yeah. And I got on their Discord and I talked to some of the people there. I should also mention, I am self-employed. Start Playing, I just appreciate what they do. I'm not employed by them or anything like that. Which is a huge part of it as well, because part of it for me, again, kind of doing the thing I love, I felt like I was making my money, not being given an allowance by a company, right? But yeah, I just wanted to throw it out there so it didn't feel like I'm,
promoting.
Promoting or anything like that.
Yeah. There's only a few avenues out there that really kind of support creators to do and gather that player base outside of like D&D Beyond, right?
Yeah, the biggest obstacle I found is places that let you post your listing, right? Or let you seek out players in a professional regard. Because like the subreddit, the LFG subreddit, has a huge following, but they don't allow those kinds of interactions.
Right. It'd be too much promoting.
There's a separate subreddit that is microscopic by comparison, which is just an unfortunate circumstance. But then things like the D&D Beyond forums were a huge avenue for me in that regard. But yeah, it's I already said it's let me do the thing that I, took over my life when I started playing D&D, and it's let me do that and make a living off of that, which lets me make my own schedule so I can play more D&D and all that stuff, you know. Also, being able to make my own schedule makes it easier to schedule the games that I run professionally. So it in regards to that, it kind of supports itself in that way too. So
Cool. And actually, and speaking of kind of paid GMing, Boop, I feel like I remember hearing that you were approached talking about, hey, why don't you do this stuff? Is there a reason you haven't taken that plunge? I mean, you pretty much do it through streaming.
I haven't really taken that plunge because there are very few when it comes to like streaming D&D.
Yeah.
I feel like if I could theoretically get something out of this clout wise or something, I feel bad. Like, hey, numbers shocks makes me think, oh, I don't want you to, I don't know. It just something about like when clout comes involved, it makes it very difficult for me to justify like
It takes some of the joy away from it, is that it?
Not the joy, but it makes it difficult for me to justify, like, I don't want people to think that, like, I don't know why. It just never really was a thought that I had at the time. And I know that a lot of people that are, at least in my circle in streaming, wouldn't be able to afford that. Or, like, maybe they would, but then they'd expect something more. And people, in my mind, I value the time of my players very, very highly. And I'd feel terrible for wasting it or giving a subpar product on its own. And if they're paying for it on top of that, it would just make me feel awful.
Gotcha.
So, especially when it comes to, like, most of my games are with streamers, and that's great. More so than other people, I feel like their time is worth more because any second that they are awake, they could hypothetically be working. And I feel more bad about it.
Gotcha.
So I want to, so if this is their time off, I want to make sure that their time off is great.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this makes sense at all, but I've always just been too afraid to ask my stream people who are like streaming their game, like, hey, maybe like $10 for a session. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I feel like I understand as well. Like you didn't make it all that confusing because, I mean, I experienced this kind of with like my own friends. Like I spend personally a lot of money on D&D as a DM. Like I buy
it's not cheap.
Oh yeah.
God, don't get me started on the money I spent on D&D.
Yeah. Like Foundry or like all the D&D books and
Based
like
Foundry.
Foundry. Oh my gosh, such a good program, so worth the money. Yeah, and like miniatures and maps on Patreon and all that stuff. So and
okay,
then
when I was gonna say for like miniatures to save money on that, get into 3D printing.
oh yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
I heard that it's a big money saver.
Yeah, we'll segue into that in a little bit.
I don't do lie. I play almost exclusively online. I haven't touched physical dice in years.
Yeah.
I totally understand now.
But Jamie.
Oh yeah. But yeah, as I was saying, so yeah, so much money goes into D&D, and this is just me and my IRL friends. You know, stuff that we just do casually. We don't even like stream our campaigns or anything because it's just me and my friends. But whenever I spend money, they always ask me like, "Hey, how much did you spend?" I'm like, I'm not telling you because then I'll feel bad for you guys having to pay for this because, you know, I'm the one that dragged you guys into playing D&D with me. And you know, stuff like that, because you just want everyone to have fun. You don't want everyone to think about like logistics and all that stuff, like money and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And and like when they offer to like pay for stuff, like, oh my gosh, one of my players approached me a few days ago and like showed me like that Wormwood GM screen
Oh.
that they have that's going on right now, and he was like, bro, look at this GM screen, it's so sick. I'm like, holy crap, that is so sick. And he's like, okay, I am willing to split with you. I'm like, what? Why? You don't even GM. I'm the only one who's gonna be using it, you know? And he tells me like it's just for the experience. It elevates my experience. I'm like,
Yeah.
what, bro? We don't even like DM in person that much. Like once a month we're able to meet up IRL, and the rest of our campaigns are online. And it's just like well, being paid for all
Yeah,
of that stuff, you know, it's because I guess it's just very personal. It's a personal sort of thing when you start like DMing with friends.
Mm-hmm.
It made me so nervous of like what I had. It made me feel like if I get paid, I have to raise my everything
Oh my
Yeah.
so
god.
much higher, and it made me scared. Like unironically, made me panic a little bit because I am setting up a new session 0 soon. Another one, yes, ha. And I had a player who was just like, "Yo, you mentioned that you had this idea for a sci-fi campaign. I'm down to like, what are your rates? I'll fucking pay you for it." I'm like, "Wait, what? I don't have rates. What are you talking about?"
Man,
What are you talking about?
I swear, GMs have some kind of like mental survivorship bias because it's like their imagination goes so wild. It's like it has to be to this level. Nothing's ever good enough. Like, don't even contribute. Don't even look at me, but play in my games.
Oh my god.
Like,
What a mood.
that's so, and I get that in a way that's backwards and wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you should be like asking, "Hey, if you can pitch in, great. If not, don't worry about it." Like, that's okay. But like something in my mind is telling me like I had to, like, me when I was physically like put myself when I was describing hypothetical prices for a campaign,
Mhm.
I had to like put myself in character, like in this sort of situation where I'm like no longer myself, I am this other character. I
Yeah.
am a person who is physically responsible, and hypothetically discuss, okay, what is my time worth compared to what is your time worth, and like think about it that way. Because if I just thought, because they were pressuring me so much about it and genuinely asking about it, that I had to give them an answer,
Mm.
and it was so, I don't know. I don't feel icky about it, but I just feel like I shouldn't pressure people to go search for that.
Well,
Do you think you feel that way because it's just D&D is just something that you enjoy?
Yeah.
So
And I feel like
it-
anyone should be able to enjoy it.
well, like because you enjoy it, you don't think you should be paid because you enjoy it because you think you're doing it for fun.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I don't. Part of me wants it to be a job. Like that, I'm streaming, for God's sake. That's like, yeah, you don't do this shit without wanting to hopefully make money.
sure.
But at the same time, like, this sort of requesting money. One time I jokingly said like, "Oh yeah, if you want to pay me, just subscribe." And they actually did that, and I was like, "What the fuck are you doing? Why would you do that?"
Why would you do what I exactly told you to do?
I think
Why
there's a.
would you do that, dipshit, idiot? And I actually like called him out on it.
Oh my god. Oh my god. He'll never
Dumbass,
appear
I was
again.
joking.
Take it back. Take it back.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah, I was talking with someone just the other day, I think, and this same kind of feeling came up on their end when we were talking about it. So it's definitely something that is kind of a widespread thing, right? Like there's this feeling like I think because people look at it as a hobby or a game or whatever the case
Yeah.
might be, and it is all those things, but
I I think it's because like most people didn't have to pay for their first D&D experience.
That could
Like,
be.
That could be.
I got into D&D like because someone was generous enough to offer their time, offer their resources, and I feel like I have to be generous with my time and resources as well.
So let me actually.
There's like a weird. I feel like there's a weird community of charity in D&D, and that's wholesome as fuck. But
There can be, yeah, but I'm gonna actually segue over to back to Ezebiel, who does paid GMing, and there were some stories that you had told me in the past about how, you know, there's people who work many hours and they just want to have the ability to go in, put, you know, 10, 20 bucks for a session and expect, you know, and get into something that they can expect something decent in return, right? And decent isn't necessarily, I would call, a high bar for D&D, right? Because in my experience, almost every player has always just been mind blown or had just a blast, unless there's drama, right? And they enjoyed the game. And I think GMs have a different perspective of the game because we're looking at it from a different perspective entirely. We know too much.
Yeah. So there's a couple things I want to mention on the subject of this. In addition to that feeling of like I have, you know, this is something that should be free, or it doesn't feel right to ask for money for this thing that I just enjoy doing. There's also a stigma for paid GMing out there that I've come across. Not directly to my face, fortunately, because I am a wee fragile person, but you know, in talking with people before I ever even did this, right? But in talking with people, like one time comes to mind in a game I had joined, and I don't even remember who these people are. I wouldn't mention it anyway. But the person who was running this game was just saying that, you know, it's people being greedy and stuff like that. So there's also that kind of negative stigma against it. And I feel like the way to look at it counter to that, the way that I might propose it as someone who is a paid GM, is like, if I'm an artist and I draw art and that's the thing that I enjoy doing, I'll draw art and I'll give it to my friends for free. And I know that's a thing that happens because I've seen that everywhere. I've had plenty of artist friends who will do that same thing, but they also do commissions. They will have people come to them and request art, and there will be a transaction and a product given. It's, you know, you can, it feels a bit different, but you can look at it as another creative pursuit that can be monetized just like any other, you know,
creative profession.
thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. And on shoot, I need you to refresh me. When Dragon, you kind of called on me here, and I went off on my own tangent.
It's all good.
Unrelated to what you were talking about.
Yeah, you know, there's a large community out there, right? And the communities themselves are separate. You know, you got your working class, you got your freelancers, you got your artistic folks who are kind of, you know, busting their ass to make, you know, to do what they love, and maybe they have like a part-time job to help sustain along the way, right? I imagine many people in the VTubing and probably the expanded streaming community falls into one of those general categories, right? So when you were telling me about some of the people who were requesting games and trying to do scheduling, and when you run into conflicts or when you merge some of your games because, you know, a player dipped out, didn't work, you know, some of those people would come back and be like, hey, I enjoyed the game you ran. I'd love to, you know, play in one of your future ones or join the game that's ongoing or whatever, right? But it seems that as long as the player is enjoying themselves, if their expectation is, hey, I put 10 bucks down, I play, you know, once every 2 weeks with this guy, there's actually, I was very surprised at some of those kind of surface level stories you were telling me about. There's people like that. But
yeah.
at the same time, I was in the corporate world. I know what it's like to bust your ass all day, and then you come home and it's just like, dude, I don't want to think, I don't want to do anything. I just want somebody to be there to run a D&D game because I love playing D&D, right? And sometimes that might be worth, you know, 10, 15 bucks.
Yep. I mean, like, it's absolutely not the same rate, but like, I'll throw down $15 a month to play Final Fantasy. Shoot,
True. Yeah, true.
Because I get retainers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, it's like any other monetized creative profession. It's what it's worth to the person with the money, right? So, like, on average, especially if you look at Start Playing, you'll see that there is a pretty common standard rate of $20 per player per session, which sounds like a lot. Sounds like a lot to me. It sounded like a lot to me when I first started doing it. But now,
Sounds wild to me.
since I've been making money more recently, you know, I've actually been a productive member of society again after not having been for a while. I have money again, and I'm spending that money like crazy on things I want to do, right? So if I was in that situation and, you know, this opportunity was there, I might absolutely do it. I've looked at the game listings and I've gone to join some of them even. So, but I think another thing to look at in regards to it, kind of touching on expectation, right, is from the perspective of a DM who does DMing for free and all that stuff. You might feel like, well, I have to give something more if I'm being given something, because previously I gave what I normally give and I've gotten nothing besides the experience. Now, if I'm getting the experience and also monetary income, then I have to be giving something more out of it. And I feel like what you get out of it, both from my perspective as the DM running the game, but also from the players, is an assurance. You get the assurance that the people who are there, DM included, are going to be more invested in the game and the experience in interacting with these other people because they're putting something into it. And the DM is invested because they're getting something, right?
That's true.
So,
that's true. Yeah, I didn't actually consider that.
I think that's something that is some wisdom that was passed down to me from one of these other DMs that does this, and I think that's absolutely the right way to look at it, right? Like, I might do things differently in the games I run professionally. I don't know if I do. I would need someone who's experienced both to tell me if I do. It doesn't feel like it to me, but there is that assurance. Yeah, I know that I'm going to be there if it's on the schedule, because these people are paying me to get that, right? They're paying me for that session. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to make sure that that experience is at least as good as I would normally give. And similarly, from their end, if they're putting money into it, they're not just going to blow it off. So,
yeah, I've run into that with online games, and I think we'll segue here to Glacier here very soon. But yeah, with online games, I've had cases. I've joined games. I've tried to run games where players just are inconsistent with their availability, and sometimes you won't find out until like an hour until. Not to say that that doesn't happen with the paid side, but I imagine that, like you're mentioning, there's much more consistency because they are putting something back to have the experience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
I think I will draw a line, though, that the experience in a paid game is likely different from the experience, say, like with Boop in streamed games, right? I can say, because I also run a game on my channel, that streaming a game and paying for a game, ultimately the GM, I think their commitment still should be to the player. But when it's a paid game, you just want to make sure that it's full on. This is an experience. Hopefully you're getting what you pay for. Hopefully, the player finds that valuable and fair, but you don't have to really worry about external sources as much as, say, streaming it, where I have the issue of material that I use during my campaign, because last thing I want is to pull something from Marvel, which turns out, it's owned by Disney now, and then I don't want to deal with that. Boop, streaming games, do you ever run into those issues, or not a problem on your side?
I make a very big point to look up artists who either label their music as DMCA free,
Yeah.
or who are so small that I don't think I'll have any issues.
Sure.
Or at the very least, if I do have any issues, it'll be the kind that we'll just like put an ad but won't claim it. Big record labels like the Universal Music Group, Hollywood Records,
Yep.
Disney is a big one. I avoid like the fucking plague.
Yeah.
I do a lot of research in that regards to just make sure that things don't get claimed. If I do hypothetically do a parody like I would of, for example, when I did the parody session of the, oh god, I got raided. Oh wait, no, never mind. Never mind. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just listening to a soundtrack and a sound effect came up that plays when I get raided.
Nice.
Anyways, okay. Back to what I was saying. A lot of research goes into making sure that I don't get, murdered by ye old monks of the Dimka.
The what now?
The monks of the MCA.
Ah,
As they are fucking assholes and will not hesitate to murder me.
Yeah.
But
No, they don't care.
that being said, they'll, some research goes into that, and some funny changes. Like, I didn't call the ship. I don't use any of the Star Wars names, even though I occasionally run SW5E stuff.
You give it your own
and,
brand.
Yeah.
Cool.
And that's very easy to do with D&D. Like, you don't even really need to call anything any particular name, and that's something that's always been very fun.
I agree.
Yeah.
So on the other side of the table, probably someone who doesn't have to deal with any of this shit, Glacier, you mentioned that you run physical games and you print the miniatures and you save some costs that way, and it sounds like you do a lot of the painting yourself as well. Tell us a little bit about that. I barely remember the days.
oh god. I've tried running online games before for my friends, and because I've been running like with the same group of friends for I guess like it's got to be like the last 7 or 8 years.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, some of
Nice.
us with yeah. And one of the reasons like why we chose not to like run online, it's because like I find it's like when you're online, it's so easy to get distracted
True.
rather than be
That
at the
is very
table.
true.
Hmm.
And like we did that during COVID as a test pilot. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. Just because I've ran with them before on a table, and you don't get the same energy.
Oh,
with-
100%.
It's like it's a totally different experience. And then when the thing is that you're trading that for convenience though when you do it online, because like since we've gotten older the last couple of years and whatnot, and then like we've all been really working jobs, full-time jobs, so it's harder to see each other.
Hmm.
And so so running a game in person is like the one time that we actually sit down. Oh, okay, once a week on a Monday, we're all gonna sit down and we're gonna play D&D or whatever tabletop game that we're playing.
That's really, I think that's really special that you have a group or groups that you can get together with and do that, because I do miss the days of going to the hobby shop and finding a group there. And I was a part of the same group for about a good year at that hobby shop, and there's definitely a different dynamic when you have the physical interaction. You can actually see the body language, right? My GM, I'll probably never forget the guy. he would appear in costume to the hobby shop.
Oh,
He came
that's
he came one
amazing.
day with just a black robe, white painted face. It was a character from the story. He came in another time with just crazy. It was like Einstein gone crazy, the crazy mad scientist, and you know that type of element, that flavor, you really kind of miss out online. But I do think there will come a time where that gap does get bridged with the way, you know, VTubing is evolving, and streaming IRL is sometimes a tricky point for a lot of people because, you know, it's IRL. Doxing is an issue online sometimes. But I think with VTubing, there's going to come a point, and I'd love to entertain the idea at some point where we do like live 2D and with a group of people who maybe have some good expressions where we could try to really translate some of that physical and manifest it into digital. But yeah, tell me about the miniatures
Oh,
though.
yeah.
Okay, so I got into the whole miniature thing. It's got to be at least 3 or 4 years ago when we started. We just wanted to have better representation because, like, when we all first started, I mean, we would just use like random dice or whatever, and then we just like, you know, if we just start throwing a little bit of money at it and just buy figures and, you know, paint them, you know, and whatnot, it might just enhance the experience. And then the last game that I was a part of that lasted almost about 2 years, we because I ended up getting a 3D printer, and then one of the other players got a 3D printer, so we were just printing models that we could just get our hands on with different sort of subscription services. And I'm gonna shout out Loot Studios. Like, I'm not sponsored by them at all, but I wish. But they have some of the best sculpted minis that you can get, because what they do is that they come up with a theme every month. So like, I think this month it's goblins. So it's like, cool. So they'd come up with a whole set of just different sort of goblins, and then some sort of boss goblin, and a whole bunch of like terrain and stuff. So if you wait a while and you're on the subscription service, eventually you're going to get everything, and you just kind of slowly print out what you kind of need. So I've been with them for about 2 years now. So
And you print them yourself through, that's the service that they do? Is that they give you the printable files, or these guys are making the models and you buy the models?
Okay, part of the subscription service is that they don't print them for you. You have to, they give you the files and whatnot.
Gotcha,
And
so
then
you
you
need a
print them on
printer.
your own machine. Yeah, you
Okay.
do need a printer, but the thing is with 3D printing the last couple years is that it's gotten really cheap. Like, getting a resin printer for minis is less than $200.
Oh, that's way more affordable than what it used to be.
Yeah, it used to be really expensive. Like, the big ones are still like pretty expensive, but like if you get like a Photon S, it's on the smaller side, so you won't be able to fit you won't be able to fit as many minis, or you'll have to cut up the bigger ones to print out. But they depending on the subscription service, they keep that stuff in mind to where people only have the smaller ones, so they'll cut it for you for free, or it's part of the files that you download. It just might take you longer to print everything,
Yep.
because normally like a batch of minis would get printed off. You could probably, if you put it on the plate correctly, it'd probably take you about 3 to 4 hours to print 6 minis.
Oh wow, I didn't realize it took so long.
Well, that's actually not too bad.
No,
And then you
3D
just
printing.
yeah. So it does it layer by layer, and then you just drop it in some alcohol, and then you just, you know, take some of the prongs off, and then you just glue them, and then bam, you got like 6 minis. But like if you have a whole week to plan a session out, you got time to get enough minis.
Yeah, my perception of it, one, I'm not super versed in 3D printing myself, but all the videos I've seen of it have probably, now that I think about it, have probably been sped up for convenience sake. But for those that don't have the ability to do their own 3D printing, I think you guys were talking about this earlier, which are the D&D like box miniature sets, right?
Oh Oh, yeah, yep, those totally work.
Mm-hmm.
which is an interesting alternative. It's basically miniature loot boxes, but you know.
Ah, it really is.
Yeah, but those are pretty cool too. They're all pre-painted too. So for those looking again D&D and you want miniatures, that's an idea from the folks that do D&D.
Mm.
All right. Well, I think unless there's sorry, what was that?
I was gonna say, like, painting in itself, that's a whole nother can of worms.
Painting is a whole nother
Yeah.
can of worms. So I've done miniatures in my life, and not for D&D in particular, but I always enjoyed the assembly, less so the painting. I don't know what it is. But with that, I think we're going to take a quick break here, probably a 3 to 5 minute break, just so everyone can top off their glass, use the restroom, all that good stuff. And then when we come back, we're going to touch a bit about what running a game actually is like, some of the aspects that go into preparing for a game, maybe touching on some session zeros and any advice that or lessons learned that we have for people looking to run D&D. And then later tonight, we'll be touching a bit on kind of behind the scenes and some of the more nuanced what happens behind the GM screen. But with that, thanks everyone for tuning in, sticking around. We'll be back in 3 to 5. See y'all in a bit. Let's go.
Yeah, and
All
I'm having a good time. So don't stop me now.
Yeah. What's up, everybody? We're back. Thanks for hanging out. And yeah, for a little bit here, we're gonna touch on running games, what that's like, what goes into kind of prep work, and I think Boop is actually gonna share with us a little bit about what he does with his players. So let's see it.
What do? I tell them to make characters. I ask them questions about their characters, and then we do a session 0. They introduce themselves. We sort of do some. In a perfect world, I would actually no. Before anything happens, we do a session 0. Everyone gets to know each other, and that's fun. Like a session 0 has to happen, especially for me, because gamers. I have a problem.
Oh, let's hear it.
What's that?
I have too many fucking ideas and I will never be able to get through this whole list type of problem.
Nice. I don't think you're alone in that camp.
Is this? No, hold up. Let me show my screen again. There we go. Okay. This is it. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 campaigns that have all been more or less thought out. The general themes and ideas that I want to run through are all present and written and prepared. I just need players to fill them. And so, yeah, 10. Open the doc. I linked it.
Oh my gosh.
They're all fleshed out enough to the point where if I've truly had I need maybe a few weeks to do some prep, question my players, ask them, hey, what kind of character do you want to build, like implement their stories, and then I could just run it. A lot of how I come up with campaign ideas are technically I have something of a living world in that some campaigns will affect other campaigns loosely, and that's sort of what inspires other things. For example, if I go through the doc, you'll be able to see like, prequel to this, sequel to that, blah blah blah, or and sometimes it's just as simple as, hey, I wanted a fucking heist. And this will happen like at the same time as X and Y, and yeah.
Very cool.
Wow.
Very cool. Yeah, you're pretty organized too. Yeah, looking at it, I like it.
He's
Man,
got
I need a
tables and
doc.
everything.
I know. Look at this guy.
And then you see my foundry, and it's a fucking mess.
I mean,
God. At least your Google Docs are all nice. My Google Docs are just all like a mishmash of notes, and then I just throw it in a folder and never look at
You
it
think
again.
I take notes?
You guys have Google Docs. I've got Notepad.
Oh,
I haven't taken a note in 2-3 years.
That's
about
because you
what else in
stream.
my campaign.
That's because you stream it. You just rewatch it.
Oh, yeah, you're
Bold
right.
of you to assume that
No.
I rewatch a VOD.
That's fair. That's fair. I've yet to meet someone who's like, dude, you say you watch your own videos after? I do that too. I've yet to meet somebody in the VTuber community who does that.
No.
Rewatching myself DM sounds like a nightmare.
It's because I'm on YouTube. God damn it. Notepad MVP.
I mean, yeah, there was an idea once to do that, and then I never did it.
But if I recall, you used to make not tables, but you had spreadsheets.
Yeah, I don't I don't like using docs. I don't like using Word. I don't know how to use Excel, but Google makes it easy. Figure out how to do things and make it look pretty. So there's been times where I used that actually. Like the one that comes to mind is where I had something that was kind of set up for a living world type situation, where stuff needed to be unlocked, stuff like that. And so having all of the items that could be in the game, right? So that we wouldn't have to constantly reference the books and then be like, do we have this unlocked? Do we have that? Can we make this? Is this something we can do in the item crafty go machine? I threw it together in a spreadsheet, had the whole list of all the items, and then, you know, how many were in the storage and stuff like that, and a little icon for if it was unlocked. It's super handy. I really do like using the Google Docs, the Google Sheets, for anything that I need columns for in my prep work. Otherwise, I use Notepad++ for everything.
Very
I don't
cool.
even know why I have Notepad++. I don't code, but I have a sibling who does, and they got me to install it one time, and now I have it every time I have a fresh install on my computer.
Yeah.
Coding.
All my prep, all my planning, all my notes, probably going to be in Notepad.
Yeah, my phone has slowly become like just a D&D device. I have so many notes on my phone. I copy it into like a Discord. It's, there are tricks that we have, god dang it.
Yeah, my phone is there for if I'm in bed, because I don't have a laptop or anything. My computer is PC out of my bedroom, and I shut it off at night anyway. My phone is there for if I'm in bed, and I'm just like, I woke up, it's like, I had a dream, it's like, I need to have this Santa Claus character in a D&D game now. That's, Santa Claus character isn't out of nowhere. It was a thing that actually I dreamt and then wrote down. It's in my notes somewhere. But also, if I'm like, if I'm going around my apartment, right, and I'm just, if I start monologuing to myself, it's like, oh shit, I need to record this so I remember it.
Very nice.
Or if I'm doing like a voice or something, it's like I'm not gonna remember this. I need to record this now. So yeah, there's that's what my phone exists for in the D&D world.
Yeah, so a lot of kind of pre-building ideas of, you know, a world you want to adventure in, trying to figure out kind of what the players are doing is what I'm hearing. You get some feedback from them, have an understanding, because the sooner your players have characters ready, the easier a GM's life is going to be. I've had games where it's like day one is a day away, and they're like, hey, how do I roll for stats? Jamie, one thing I really enjoyed that you did is you had streamed a couple times, I believe, your D&D prep, like doing maps and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, how did that go?
It was really chill. It's really similar to, you know,
Like
just like
just
a Twitch
drawing?
art stream.
Yeah.
Just drawing and all that. You're just talking, listening to music, and like brainstorming aloud.
Sure.
I feel, yeah, like it really helps me a lot. Personally, like streaming some of the stuff that I do for planning, because then I can then I'm not like talking to myself in my room, like, you know, all by like a mad woman, like I'm
Sure.
actually talking to people in chat and all that, you know, about like what my ideas and all that are.
Yeah.
And then I get like, you know, some ideas from like people that like hop on and they're like, hey, like that looks pretty cool. Have you thought of this? I'm like, oh no, I haven't thought of this. Let me try that. And yeah.
Such a great idea. I love the think tank of the internet.
Is it a think tank or a hive mind?
Hive mind. You gotta wonder sometimes, right?
brain.
Yep.
It's definitely a hive mind.
Oh my god. And Glacier, if you've been playing with the same group for such a long time, everyone I imagine has a pretty standard idea of how to play the game, or what kind of challenges do you run into?
Okay, the toughest parts about running it for the same group, I can't even say it's the toughest part. I guess the easiest thing is that you kind of know. I know how all my players are gonna act before they even do it. Like I know what sort of baggage each one is gonna end up bringing to the table. I know exactly how they're going to play their character, because which is great. So it's just like, all right, so you get to the point as DM, you go like, okay, do I plan for how their character is going to play, or do I plan for how I think the player themselves is going to play, and then sometimes you just go and like, it's like for instance, one of my players, she has a thing for just kids. Like if a kid is in danger, or if there's something going on with the kid, or a child is hurt or killed, she will cry.
Oh no.
Like
They can't help
like
it.
She will, yeah, just well, she will drop whatever she's doing or to help out an imaginary kid, for instances, and just like you just know that sort of thing about your players for so long, since you just know how they're going to be, how it's hard to think about it. It's
Yeah, you have insight, right? You have the experience having been exposed to them for so long, and I think that's an advantage that we see a lot in successfully broadcasted games, right? Like Critical Role is a pretty critical example. Is people sometimes forget that those guys have known each other for years before Critical Role blew up, and they've been playing D&D for probably a good year, 2 or more at least, before they started even sharing it with the world. And obviously the voice acting experience that they have kind of getting into characters really lends well to their production value, but they know how to bounce off of one another because they've known each other for so long, right? So that insight is pretty valuable, especially when you're GMing. You know what to expect from your players, and well, you know what to expect, or at least it becomes easier.
Exactly. The only time we end up running into any sort of trouble is if we're tackling a new game. Like,
Yeah.
It's pretty safe to say that like we all know 5e pretty well. If we run in a 5e game, it's going to run pretty smoothly. But since my last game was like Cyberpunk, we all needed to learn how to play Cyberpunk and getting used to how those mechanics works. And then just like, of course, I'll get stuff wrong. They might not figure out how their character is supposed to work, or there might just be weird mechanics that they're not used to. That's the only problems that we usually run into. At this point in time, there's no like drama between any of the players. That's kind of gotten fixed over the last couple of years. Like usually, you know, you'll know which players are going to be causing you problems, and you just don't invite them back to the table.
Yeah, actually, you know, that's interesting you bring up drama, because that is something I love to hear from everyone. Kind of, if you've run enough games, there's some, I don't want to label everything in this topic as drama. Sometimes there's just like nuances, right? Pet peeves, things that the GM would expect at the table and players don't respect that aspect of the game, or maybe the lack of a person's commitment, which as a paid GM, you remove some of that because, again, they're contributing their time via a paid game. They're less likely to waste everyone's time and your time, right? Whereas when I've been to the hobby shop and played games years ago, they're almost every new group had an initial one player that just wasn't vibing with the group, right? It's like trying to mix oil and water. There was just something was off with how they interacted, how they chimed in. Have you guys run into anything like that with players, good or bad?
A few.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I would say
Generally,
constantly. But
Let's
generally,
start.
I'm able to.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. You were BRB and you missed the last one. So yeah, how about Boop? You kick it off.
yeah, go for it.
I would just say generally I've been able to avoid or deal with it, and we've been able to adjust with it. Nothing so drastic that I've felt like I had to pull someone aside or ruin it. Or like remove them from the game. Generally, what the issue is scheduling. It's very rarely a player's actions, and the one time that it was a player's actions, scheduling removed him from the campaign anyway. So that went.
So it worked itself out then.
It worked itself out in
Nice.
its own way, Yeah.
I'll piggyback
How
off of that too, because I've run into issues with scheduling where I'm always down to have a player I enjoy jamming for be a part of the game. But if their schedule doesn't allow them to be consistent, like for the betterment of the game and all your other players who may or may not get to have you in the party consistently, I sometimes wonder if those players should maybe sit out for a month until their scheduling becomes a bit more easier to accommodate, then bring them into the campaign. But I don't know. I it's definitely scheduling. The older you get, in particular, becomes more and more challenging, right? I think that's just unavoidable. Life happens.
Yeah.
I personally think for me scheduling with my campaign group, we kind of come to the consensus where like we typically don't go because our sessions are like bi-weekly, and even then we still have people that are missing because of like work and other like prior responsibilities and all that. And I guess like maybe it's just for our group in particular, but we've kind of come to the consensus like, oh hey, if you miss a session, you'll just, you know, be in the background. You'll be an NPC for that session today, and we'll just fill you in on next time. I've had some players leave due to scheduling, whether that's because work and they're just too tired to play anymore. But I think it's a lot of like, even if they can't really play anymore, like the door's still always open, you know. And I feel like always keeping that door open makes it a lot easier to pull people aside and be like, hey, it's kind of been rough scheduling with you. You want to take a break from D&D or something, you know?
Yeah. I've always struggled with that a little bit. I feel like sometimes what I end up accidentally doing is not coming off a good way.
Oh. Yeah.
It's a tricky subject, right? Because there's you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to turn a player off from your campaign. You don't want to turn away a player from D&D. I mean, because it's something most people who are into it enough to run games typically love it, right? But I think there are situations, and I've been a part of games where I've had to talk to the DM. It's like, hey, this one is clearly souring the mood between these two other people. You're the GM. I back you up, but it's your call, right? I do believe very strongly that the GM has final say at the table, right? Because if the GM is out, none of the players get to enjoy it.
Yeah. Like, and I guess like a lot of people, well, you know, we're always like, hey, you should try DMing and like all that stuff because we need more DMs and all that. But it's really scary to put yourself out like that.
Yeah.
You know, especially especially with like D&D. I know there's like a huge like pool of like introverted people who just like playing like RPGs and all that, who are really not into role playing in person so much, and it's a struggle to get like like an introverted DM like myself to really put themselves out. And not only that, but to have introverted players as well who have never role played before, and it's like, oh god, everyone's at the table and we're all quiet and they're looking at each other trying to figure out what to do, and you just gotta like nudge them on and all that. But yeah, like there's a lot that goes into DMing that makes it really scary sometimes, because you really got to take charge, especially when the chemistry between you and like the players is no longer in the game. And it kind of sucks mentally because, you know, there's always like all those Reddit like RPG horror stories about people who lose like lifelong friendships because their friends act like so much more different role playing than like as than just hanging out and all that, you know. Yeah, like all those like horror stories about like, oh hey, we actually enjoy all of the inappropriate stuff like murdering people and exploiting people and all that stuff. And yeah, but even with all that scary stuff, I feel that DMing helps make you more assertive in a way. I don't know if that's the right word to put it, but a lot more.
You're in the hot
a
seat.
lot more comfort. Oh my god! Don't say that. Don't say the hot seat. Now I feel like the whole spotlight's on me right
Well,
now.
the spotlight is on you right now, but that aside.
Oh god, it is. I'm like full zoomed in on your stream. Oh god.
But I think that lends to what we were talking about earlier, how important like session zeros are, right?
Oh yeah.
We
For
didn't
sure.
really dive super deep into it, but session zeros are a way to get people together before the campaign begins to kind of touch on any house rules, any what's off limits, right? Boundaries, setting expectations, getting players prepared. It's kind of like a pre-meet, in a way, which I think helps kick off the campaign once it starts, right? It gets it off on the right foot. So, yeah, make sure your players are cool with the themes of the campaign. If anything's hard off limits, mention it. I do find, however, having gone through a few session zeros, that it's difficult for players to know what they don't want until it happens.
Yeah.
So a good idea for GMs would actually be to prepare a list of things that didn't work out for them, so that during a session zero, they can bring up a list of like common past problems that they experienced that maybe players are like, yeah, I don't actually, now that you mention it, I don't like the idea of one of my party members committing suicide on the spot, even if the intentions are kind of mixed bag, right? Because you don't know if someone else in the group has experienced that kind of trauma IRL, which is heavy, I'll just say. So
Yeah, in regards to session zeros and all of that, everything you were just talking about, I feel like everyone who runs D&D, runs a game more than once, probably has some sense of how they run a session zero, right? Hopefully they have some sense of how they run a session zero, because like was mentioned here, it's important to do. There's a lot that you can go over in a session zero that is gonna make everything a much better experience, and you can avoid a lot of problems by doing it. I'm actually going to be going through a session zero with most of the people here except for Dragon.
true,
on
yeah.
the 5th.
Sorry,
On the
Drake, you're
5th,
not
we're gonna
invited.
do that.
That's fine. That's fine.
Maybe we'll get you in for the tier 2 one. That's something that maybe I'll talk about later.
You guys don't know I'm gonna appear as a cameo 2 sessions in.
Oh, surprise!
But exactly. So for session zeros, my session zero was always, we get in a Discord call. Again, my games are all online, have been for the last 8 years. We get in a Discord call, and everyone kind of meets each other in voice for the first time, usually. Not always, but a lot of the times if it's a new group. And then we would go over just kind of what the plan is for the game, right? And that was kind of my session zero. It was very vague and simple. And the main idea was, we get in the call and we just see how it goes. And that it's changed now. Over a number of experiences I've had playing D&D, some of which is Dragon's fault.
What?
I mean it in a good way.
Okay.
I've learned things that are good and important, and also fun to do in a session zero. So usually, we'd hit a session zero, and I'd be like, "All right, start. I want to go over rulings, house rules. I make a point that those are separate. Expectations of the game, and sorts of adventures that the group wants, right? Because it's not always going into it with a campaign already in mind. If there is a campaign already in mind, you skip that last bit. We just kind of talk about what that campaign is going to be. But, expectations of the game is very important, right? We want to make sure everyone's on the same board, same page. Some people want to be villains, some people want to be heroes, and you want to make sure we're all aligned in what this game is going to be. So we go over all that stuff, what people are looking to get out of the game in terms of kind of the pillars of gameplay, the combat and exploration and role play, and puzzle solving, all that good stuff. And you know, I've always heard 3 pillars: combat, exploration, role playing. But I feel like you can expand. I feel like puzzles need to be their own thing. I don't know how to make puzzles, man. I'm scared of them. Don't
Oh
expect
god,
it from
I'm
me.
so bad at puzzles too. I always have to look online to
Yeah.
get puzzles.
But then I go over rulings and house rules as well. And I mentioned I make sure I make a point that those are separate. House rules, obviously, straightforward. If you know the terminology, it's rules that you made up, right? Compared to rulings being how I'm going to dictate how the game operates, basically. As opposed to the actual rules of the game, it's how I'm going, as the DM, I'm going to make the determination. And
It's
we go over all that
decisions,
stuff.
yeah.
Yep. So we go over all that stuff. That's kind of the normal stuff. And in all of this, usually during the expectations of the game, we go over some safety tools stuff, right? It's become, when I started playing online, wasn't a huge topic that I saw around, but more recently, as time has gone on, it's become a much bigger thing that people are promoting and stuff like that, is the use of safety tools. What I use is, there is this handy like little checklist, this consent. It's a consent checklist. Goes over content that could come up in a campaign, right?
This is that page that you get when you go to the doctor and they're like, here, sign this, fill out your information, let us know what your conditions are.
kind of,
Yeah.
yeah. And it comes, you know, every type of content has 3 options. You can be green, where it's like, I'm all for it, go wild. There's yellow, which is like, we're kind of iffy here, maybe, you know, don't put it in the spotlight so much, maybe keep it behind the scenes. And then there's red, is this doesn't come up at all. If this comes up, we've got a problem. So I have people go over that, and that helps inform the basis of content in the game. And it won't ever cover everything, because sometimes, you kind of mentioned this before, sometimes there'll be a problem that you don't know is going to be a problem.
Till it happens.
Yep. And that's why I use this handy Foundry VTT. I'm not sponsored, but I would love a Foundry sponsorship.
Don't we all?
There's an incredible Foundry module for these safety cards, where it adds a bunch of buttons to the UI. Anyone can click on them. Doesn't ever... what it does is it'll pop up a card on the screen. Like, if you've watched Horizon Exploration, you've probably seen Dragon pop up images on the screen. It basically does that, and it has a little it has a big icon, and it has a bit of text that says, like, stop gameplay, fast forward, fade to black, rewind.
Interesting. It's like silent indicators that the players can give the GM.
Exactly.
Because
and
cards are easier than speaking.
Yeah, because when someone clicks on it, it doesn't say who did it.
Mm.
It pops up for everyone, so everyone knows there's a thing we need to do right now, right? So for those situations where the consent checklist, you know, you thought you had all your bases covered, but you didn't expect that this is going to be a problem, but this is a problem. You hit that button, stop gameplay, and then we figure out how to move forward.
I feel like that's a bit more appropriate for paid games, though, because I can't get out of my head that in a non-paid game, you just have players, especially if you know them, who are just troll pushing some of those.
Yeah, I keep it active in all my games regardless, but
Works out. Okay.
Because you never know. Maybe it will get you. But yeah, like, making sure you have these safety tools in place is a very important thing. I think a lot of new DMs probably don't think about or don't know about, but it is becoming a more widespread thing. So I wanted to take a chunk out of this to bring that up, because I think it's a very important part of playing online, making sure everyone is having a good time, because we're all playing D&D. We're all here to have a good time, right? This is how we're choosing to spend our free time. we're here to enjoy it, right? So these safety tools make sure of that. And there's other safety tools as well out there. If you look up TTRPG safety tools, you'll probably find a huge variety of resources. I would definitely recommend doing that. But Session Zeros, I have one last element that I do in my Session Zeros, which is something that I learned from a DM I played with. Really overhauled my Session Zero concepts in my mind after running in one of their Session Zeros as a player. And the last part we do is kind of an impromptu, just very on the fly world building, where these players will probably have some idea of what the setting is going to be, what the campaign is going to be, and I will pick a number of subjects, and I will assign maybe 3 prompts to each player, 2 or 3 prompts, and we'll just go through the group, and I'll be like, all right, tell me about a actually, let me see. Like, tell me about a prominent NPC in the world and why they're important. Tell me about an important location in the world and why it's relevant. You know, what makes it important. Tell me about a mythical creature that exists, like a one-of-a-kind legendary being that exists somewhere out in the world.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. And it gives the players some input into the world unrelated to their character that, you know, can come up. And in the game, the games I'm running professionally, I did this, and you know, the players have already come across some of these things, and it adds really interesting touches because also I kind of attribute you to this a little bit as well, Dragon. We had a slightly similar thing in the lead up to Horizon Exploration.
Yeah, my Session Zero was like a month or 2 long though, which I don't know if I'd recommend that for most people. Like, this is something, it was my first time, right, getting into streaming, getting into considering running a game online. So I was giving my players plenty of time to consider, like, hey, do you want to be a part of this streamed game, that this campaign that could go on for a year or 2, and it's going to be fully homebrewed, sci-fi flavored 5e. And I basically had all my players create a planet, create a corporation. There are no gods in the world. Corporations rule above all. And it's a massive space expanse. So it's like, I'm not so addicted where I'm going to think of millions of planets. So let's just get our players to start chiming in. And I like the idea that you're talking about, because I think it adds a fun kind of immersion / investment for the players to contribute to the world. But do any of you guys, anyone else do that?
Give some buy-in.
I had to do something like that for Cyberpunk, because how the game is set up is that the background for their life story and whatnot is really important to the campaign, because instead of, or at least how the rulebook states, is that instead of having like an overarching story, it's usually the player's own personal goals is what's supposed to be pushing their own narratives.
Yeah.
So having different corporations that they had beef with was something that they all did. They all had separate different companies that they made themselves or came up with, and then I incorporated that into the campaign.
Neato. And speaking of incorporating things in the campaign, Boop, are you back?
Yeah.
You are back. I got a question for you. Excuse me. Question for you. Because I see you posting all the time how many ideas you have. And I think we all kind of understand a bit more about that. But what's your interaction with players like as far as their contribution to your world? Or is it that you've thought of so many angles of what's going to be included? You've done your research, which you seem to do. Is something that players contribute to the world outside of their actions?
Absolutely, all the time.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, for starters, like, take for instance, like Maddening March. We, or not Maddening March, but God, there's this, like just in this, if for whatever reason we have a rogue, a barbarian, a druid, and a sorcerer in the party, why the ever-living fuck would I ever develop the divinity of the world any further than the bare minimum?
Good point.
There are constantly things that I scrap and throw out all the time because my players just will not care about it. And so I do my due diligence to have not even the specific lore or specific information, but just the seed of an idea that if I'm given the slightest interest, if my players show the slightest interest in, I can jump on.
That's actually a fantastic idea, because I think it's easy for a lot of GMs, especially those that haven't run more than one campaign, to overthink and overplan and over contribute and see that a lot of it gets wasted at the end of the day. Yeah.
And that's like part of the reason why things like session zeros are very important. It's just so that you can get a good idea of what a person is. Like, take for instance, in my game, in my whole world, it is very themed around, like, we're taking real life lore and like putting a D&D magical spin on it. Like, ooh, suddenly we're in ancient Japan, suddenly we're in the 1920s America, sometimes suddenly we're in the modern day. It's kind of all loosely tied together in that fact. And because of that, you can have players that like are really into the Norse pantheon, and other players who are intertwined with the high courts of King Oberon and Queen Titania. And you can have players who just do not give a fuck about any of that. They're just fully on their own, focused on their own personal lives. These little things sort of help me focus, like Session Zero and player backstories in particular, help me focus in on like, okay, focus on this, focus on that. And that way I can fool my players into thinking that I'm smarter than I am by preparing only what is within arm's reach.
Yep. Or the breadcrumb that you specifically has like a big spotlight pointing at it, right? It's
that's really what it boils down to. Players don't need everything. They just need the things that they can interact with. And
Fair.
sometimes, like, you can, if you want to sprinkle in some information, like, ooh, the cosmology of the world, and like the overarching big bad of the universe that I technically have, like, yeah, they care. That matters. Hopefully it will matter. You can sprinkle that in every now and then.
Yep.
But only focus on what's within arm's reach.
I think it also lends with like the pacing of the game too, right? Like, what kind of story are you trying to tell? What kind of game experience are you trying to share?
I mean, when it comes to pacing, what I focus on is having a beginning, an idea for the beginning, and an idea for the end, and then just sort of like giving some loose branching paths that I can feel free to throw out as soon as I fucking want, if my players decide otherwise. But just a general idea of what kind of theme you want to go for is very helpful, especially in my case, because I tend to run games that are a little bit shorter. I don't run year-long campaigns. The longest I typically like going is like 20 sessions. So, yeah.
I mean, that's fair.
There's a lot of...
Avoid burnout.
Exactly. Avoid burnout, but not only that, but also shorter games are more likely to have a ending, some closure to a run, whereas sandbox long-running games, as attractive as they sound, I think it's easily overlooked that unless you have a plot planned out to create that beginning, middle, and end, much like, you know, any basic storytelling 101, even video game storytelling 101, right? There's a lot of illusion of choice that goes into directing players to a plot event versus a side quest, right? And shorter games, and some of the games that unfortunately were memorable for me, but not memorable in the span of like the campaign. It was the experience that was memorable. The campaign was less memorable because I never had a closing conclusion, right? And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's had that experience out there.
Yeah,
God, yeah.
I ran a Pokemon campaign that lasted over like a year, and I
Ooh.
think the bane of the existence of that one is not the fact that my players loved it and I liked running it too, but the problem I ended up running is that I made it too long.
Mm-hmm.
Like if
Schedule.
we, because of the amount of content that I had planned out for it and whatnot, we could have been playing it for another year.
But
And it's
what
just
players
like-
just burnt out?
It's just, I think I got burnt out.
Ah.
I got burnt out of DMing it, and some of the other players that were kind of getting burnt out on it too. I think we were kind of eyeing some other sort of games to play too. So it's just like, well, if we want to do everything in it, it's gonna be like another year. But I totally understand if y'all want to go do something else instead.
Totally got that. I got very burnt out of a game. It was one that Neff was in, and I got very burnt out of that one because I just fully like told myself, no, I can finish it. Let me take a week off. That's all I need. I'll finish it. Let me take a week off. That's all I need. Nope. And I'm at the point right now where I've taken a full month off of it, and I'm happier.
Yeah. No,
Exactly.
GM burnout is real, as much as also player burnout can be real. I think it's less common, but running games, it pulls you in a lot of different directions. You got to be on your toes quite a lot. There's a lot of improv that can come up, right? Where you have to make a decision, and sometimes you feel like it has to be made within 2 seconds. It strains the mind. At least I feel like it does.
I know it completely does.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
speaking of which, I'm actually gonna segue over to Jamie here, because Jamie,
Oh God.
you're still getting ready to undertake a pretty big project coming up next year, right? The West Marches.
Yep, I am planning a West Marches campaign, which, as you guys were all talking about, like how, you know, stressful a
Oh my
sandbox
God,
game, I was just here quietly thinking, like, oh God, that is exactly what I am doing. Is this a bad idea now? You know?
Oh
But-
no, I always wanted to run one of those too. A West Marches campaign sounds amazing on paper, but oh my
Yeah.
God, I can't believe you're gonna do that. That's gonna be crazy.
I got
Yeah,
some
I'm not-
encouragement for you, but I'll save it for later.
All right, thank you. But yeah, it's a big thing. I think we already have about like 20 people
Yeah.
already signed up for the campaign, and I'm not gonna try to do it for like more than a month. I feel like that would be way too much for me. So yeah, it's a really big undertaking, and I think it's just me being crazy and being like, hey, I really like D&D, and I always see everyone on like Twitter and a lot of like people I know being like, hey, D&D sounds really fun, I really want to try playing it. So a West Marches campaign, I think, was the perfect format to just get people started at a taste of what D&D is and get them interested in it, and hopefully get them interested in encouraging them to try, you know, setting up their own D&D groups, because they'll be connecting with so many other people who will also be playing D&D. And it's a lot to plan for sure, but what I like about it is that it's very restricted to only Pathfinder, and that's the only reference that we're going to be using for the whole game. Like, there's no other add-ons or modules that we're using to reference, and that also helps teach people D&D as well. And through that, I just think that it will be a lot. It'll probably be like the greatest test as a DM I think I will ever have in my lifetime, because I'll be interacting with so many people, but I think that's just a great way to get everyone to connect, because how it works is that I'm only there to narrate everything. How West Marches works is that it's pretty much, it works almost like an online D&D forum where people will post like say, hey, I want to explore this area, who wants to come with me? And that encourages people to start forming their own groups and start talking amongst themselves about D&D and the campaign. And I can just sit back and be all like, they did all the scheduling and planning for me.
So that's actually a great segue, because we're in our last hour, and the main topic for this last hour is kind of what makes a successful game, right? And I'll say that I think the VTuber community in particular, it's a very strong niche that overlaps with D&D fans or tabletop RPG fans.
Don't I know that?
Yeah, because we're all here basically role playing, and some of the most successful campaigns I've ever been a part of or I've ever joined is when the player gets immersed in the game. They get invested in the game. They start taking notes for you. They start working with the GM behind the scenes to help building out backstory and all that kind of fun stuff. And the fact that you have a group here with a ton of VTubers getting into it, at least a good half of them, I think, are very invested in a character once they go down a road, right? So you'll get the role play taken care of for you. You get the player interaction taken care of for you. Probably, I would imagine your biggest hurdle is going to be making sure that the new players to D&D in general are making sure that they're happy and they're having a good time.
And especially since, I feel with a lot of VTubers, going back to that whole introvert thing, but other than being introverts, there's people with a lot of different personalities that you have to work with. And I feel that the biggest challenge will be getting a lot of people to speak up more, and I feel that's the biggest thing with making a successful D&D game is communication between the player and the GM.
Yes.
And like, oh my god, for all the players that are watching right now, if your GM asks you for feedback, give them like actual critical feedback, like nothing that's like, oh yeah, I had fun with the game, it was really good. that doesn't, because
that doesn't help.
Yeah, it doesn't help. Sadly, it doesn't help. Like, it's nice to hear, but what we as GMs want is to make a game that
Shit
everyone
all
likes.
over our game and tell us what we do wrong. Give us every little detail that you loathe and despise, and that way it can hopefully not exist in the future.
Wow.
I'm gonna just get straight to the point. Fucking do it, motherfucker. It's better in the long run.
Is this the moral there? I didn't quite understand the direction there, but are you basically saying players should give GMs feedback, or where was that? What did I miss?
Oh yeah, well, not just feedback, but just communicate. If there's something you want to see in the game that interests you, then let us know, because then we can help cater the game to your needs and make it fun for you. Because if the player is having fun, usually that makes it fun for the GM as well, or at least that's how it is for me. Because if my players are having fun, I'm having a bunch of fun.
Yeah, it also gives the GM directions to think about that now would directly interest at least one player, and you can make it enjoyable for all the players, right? Through this side quest or adventure or character backstory, quest line, or whatever the deal is. Okay, I got you guys now.
Yeah. I mean, that's why real criticism is really important. Don't just fluff up our ego. More often than not, we won't believe it anyway. Real criticism is worth way more than just, oh, it was so fun, I loved it, whereas you're thinking, oh man, I kind of didn't really appreciate that one moment. And that's something that I don't care if you. I mean, I do. I was about to phrase that very poorly. I care a lot that you had a bad day or that you didn't enjoy the session, and I don't care how you phrase it. I don't care if you are rude or you think that you're being mean. I promise you, in the long run, that is the kindest thing you can do, and that will help the DM more than anything. And if they can't see past that, you are not playing with a DM, you're playing with someone who's trying to write a story. And that's very different. That's a horror story.
Yeah, yeah.
Communication is always important, and a good DM will always value it, even if it's a little bit harsh, and even if you have a bit of difficulty phrasing it. With some time, even if it's negative criticism, it is always appreciated.
Yeah, voice your words of encouragement, but I don't want to hear about it. Yeah, tell me what you don't like about the game. And here's actually my suggestion to GMs out there is like, don't ask your players what did you think. Don't ask them how did you feel. Don't ask them did you like it. Ask them what did you not like about the game. So that's a little selling 101. You put the ball in their court with a direct question of the only answer they could give you is either nothing, which okay, you just told me you don't dislike anything, which is I'm gonna hold you to it, so don't be a little bitch later, or or they're gonna come back and say, okay, what did I not like about the game? I don't know if this is a big deal, but you know, this little thing I thought could have been better or whatever, right? It's they're more directed or instructed to give you that negative criticism. So yeah, be more direct with your players. And also this is something I don't see GMs do frequently is probe your players, not that way, freaking chat, but probe them for ideas and questions constantly. If not once a week, once every other week, right? Get them, because as the GM, you're gonna see more of what the players are doing rather than the players that are within the party, right? So I think that open line of communication should be there. Players should have zero hesitation reaching out to their GMs, especially if they're feeling uncomfortable about something, right? The GM, and if the GM is not on your side, you know, they obviously have to moderate and be diplomatic with a team of players, but a player should always be comfortable going to the GM who is running their campaign.
I don't have that problem at all. My players will let me know like a day or two later. I don't like this.
Yeah.
Why did you do this? What is your reasoning behind this decision that you did?
You have an advantage. You've known them probably for years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm in a completely different situation, but they will let me know for sure what they didn't like.
I have some introverted ass motherfuckers in my campaign. I swear to God. I have to pry that shit from their very hands. That's why I like playing with Neff and like other people who are like have similar energy, because they won't hesitate to
lean in,
ironically or not, tell me what is wrong with me.
Yeah. What is wrong with me, chat? Oh, very fun. Yeah, running games though, there's a lot of dynamics there, and actually there's a dynamic that I think is very split between GMs, which Glacier, you had brought up, which is fudge rolling.
Oh,
Fudging rolls.
Yeah, I know that. Oh yeah, I know some people are gonna get.
So real quick, let's go around. In favor, against, as?
Yeah.
I'm in favor. Yeah.
Definitely in favor.
Oop.
Typically, some roles I'm okay with, some roles I'm not.
Okay. There's obviously circumstances, right? And situations and story events that override.
I have to be in favor, more often than not, I'm in favor of not fudging it, just because running online, the moment I start rolling behind the DM screen, they're immediately suspicious of like what I'm doing.
True. Yeah. It's already bad enough with the random generator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
I think.
I just prefer to leave it out in the open.
Okay.
Yeah. With fudge rolling, it's an either you're fully in or you're fully out kind of thing for a campaign, because you can't just like start rolling in the open unless it's like for like specific parts of the game, when it's like, you know, story wise and like there's tension and everything. I think that's when it's good to roll in the open. But for most,
That's strange because I do the opposite.
oh, really?
I roll in the open all the time. And then when it comes to really tense story moments, I like that, like my players need to go one way or the other. I like to roll behind the GM screen.
Oh,
way,
all right.
They're
It
afraid.
keeps the
they
tension.
know until I tell them.
Yeah. So I do something interesting in my Horizon Exploration campaign. This is something I've kind of adjusted and learned through past campaigns that I've run, which is I've less and less started. No, how do I phrase this? I used to fudge roll more frequently. Nowadays, it's reduced. And the reason is that I've begun to, one, take advantage of passive rolls. So I start asking players what their passive mod is, and I start using passives if they are not actively looking for something or doing something, right? Which is kind of the intention of passive to begin with. And then for roles that I want to have some conditions around, I will adjust the conditions based on circumstance. So if there is a likelihood that a roll should fail due to story reasons, or this is like a big plot event or something, right? Save for like a 19 or maybe even just a flat out natural, like the success roll is actually going to be something like a 28 or a 32 or something near impossible, right? So it's kind of fudge rolling, but it's the dice itself aren't being fooled. It's the requirements are being pulled and stretched, right? Depending on the circumstance. So
So I think I do a bit of that as well. Like I one thing I love to make sure I do, because I feel like a lot of people overlook it, is using passives, and using passives beyond just passive perception. A favorite of mine is passive stealth, but that's beside the point. But as far as fudge rolling goes, I say I'm in favor, but it is a circumstantial thing, right? Like, I'm not gonna roll my dice and every time just be like, nah, but this is the way it actually went. But also sometimes I am going to be, but here's what's gonna actually happen, because that's just not gonna be fun, right? It's not gonna, the players aren't gonna enjoy this outcome. So I'm not gonna, this thing shouldn't have gotten a natural 20 on its breath, not on its breath weapon, but on its, massive attack and completely atomize this person. That would be horrible. They're level 1. Why would I do that? So maybe I don't do that. Maybe it doesn't get a natural 20. Maybe it doesn't do massive damage and completely outright one hit this person, but instead it does knock them out. It does a bunch of damage and all that. But on the other hand, I actually had a situation where I in the moment I had to think about the decision of which way I go with this. In one of my games, the players were encountering kind of a big enemy, a prominent story enemy, and they were in this fight, and it was a tough fight, and they had an NPC that they brought in with them for various reasons, and this NPC took a hit. This NPC took a big hit. I think it was a critical hit, which when I get a critical hit in my games, like Jamie, I think, I roll all my dice behind this. But there are certain rolls that I will reveal, and that is usually natural 20s. Because sometimes when I'm the GM, it happens a lot. But I'll reveal my natural 20. So in that circumstance, I did. I rolled the dice. I told them this is going to be a natural 20. That's a critical hit. This guy's going to take a lot of damage. And I rolled the damage. And what it came down to is this guy was being dealt massive damage. He was overwhelming damage, or whatever they call it. It's the amount of damage that you take means there is no death saving throws. There is no saving it. This guy is done. And in that moment, I was like, I thought about it. I was like, the way this rolled, because I hadn't told them the damage yet. It's like, the way this rolled, this guy he's gone. There is no saving this guy if he takes his hit.
It's a question of
It's like,
what's
well,
left.
It's 2 points over though. What if it was just a few points less? What if I just reduced this a little bit, made it just a KO and not, you know, atomize this poor NPC?
Yep.
And in that circumstance, though, there was two reasons I made the call I did. It felt like it would seem too convenient, and I thought that would maybe take the players out of the situation that they were in. It was a very tense fight. I thought if this comes across as too convenient, it might pull them out of the moment. And there's also some story beats that can go here, because one of the player characters knew this NPC a little bit better than the others. So this guy, he bit it. And now in that game, we're kind of dealing with that. They're looking at the circumstances following that event. But yeah, it's like I said, in that moment, there was a couple things I was thinking about that determined the decision.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I feel like that's anytime I consider fudging the dice or any kind of fudging of the anything in D&D, it's
Variables.
considering those variables. It's like, well, maybe this amount of reinforcements is too much. I'm just gonna delete a couple of these goblins.
yeah.
or maybe it's my players are an army in the form of 4 people. Let's add more goblins. So
Typically, it's that one for me.
Typically, same.
It goes both ways. So, you know, it's not always the fudging isn't always in the benefit of the players either. So it's a circumstance where, like, I'm never gonna be like, oh, but this is gonna be 50,000 damage instead of 13. So take that, rogue who never gets hit.
I mean, yeah, that totally makes sense, because I mean, I'm sure you've had to change a combat scenario on the fly because the players are blasting through.
Absolutely. I've gotten so used to being ready to change combats every encounter. So,
Yeah, here's
like,
a
I
message.
don't do it every encounter, but I'm ready for it for every fight.
Yeah, quick message to all the new GMs out there. The trying to plan a combat ahead of time rarely ever works, especially if you're following like the what's the CR stand for again? Something rating, creature rating, combat rating. Thank you, challenge rating, all that good stuff. But the challenge rating system has never worked for me, not a single time. It's always been, okay, I over prepared creatures, or in more cases than not, like Boot mentioned, I drastically underestimated the capabilities and action economy of the players, right? So
vampires are little shits. They can't do anything.
yeah,
I think that they're cool with their high CR, but they can't do shit.
Yeah.
I'm actually dealing with that now. My whole campaign, the 2 campaigns I'm running on Sundays, it's all very vampire themed. But piggybacking off of that, Dragon, I feel like there's 2 ways I want to go with this. One is creating combat, balancing combat is the hardest thing in my mind, it's the hardest thing you'll do in D&D as a DM. But I don't want that to discourage anyone, because I feel like you could take anyone, any DM would probably tell you similarly. I'm putting myself out there and I'm saying that you could have made 1.5 million combat encounters for 1.5 million different types of groups and everything, and learn so much from all of those encounters, and you'll still never quite get what you are wanting to get, or what you're expecting to get out of a combat encounter design, right? And it's that ramps up anytime you have a new group of people, or a new player, or a new element has been introduced into the party. That could even just be a magic item, or a new spell or something. The characters are always changing, and you can learn a little bit about how your players play and what their characters are capable of, but you know, that's why I'm in favor of fudging. Like, if you can make little adjustments here and there, it can
Elevate
make
the experience.
combat encounters better. Yeah, exactly.
So I guess I'll jump in on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely in favor, just because if it's going to kill the players' fun, because to me that is like the only rule, or the only real rule for any tabletop game is like, did the players have fun? Because I might bend rules or something like that if it's, you know, gonna kill the vibe of the table, because I want everyone to walk away. Like, of course, you know, kill a player or two here if, you know, if it just bounds to happen. But I want everyone to walk away from the table going like, yeah, that was a fun experience. And 5e in itself, it's pretty, players are just pretty powerful. But I also got done playing Cyberpunk, and I had to fudge rolls on that entirely, because have any of y'all read Cyberpunk before?
Nope.
No, I've just read the book.
Okay,
the rule
so
book.
combat in that game is extremely deadly. Like, one bullet can just straight out kill a player if it crits and hits in the right spot. So imagine a system where, okay, you just have a handgun, right? And if you shoot and you hit, you get to roll 4d6s.
Oof.
And if you get double sixes, you get a crit. And say that you aimed for the head, so you do double damage, and then you get on top of a crit, and then you get to roll on a injury table. And the injury table can cause you to gain some sort of injury. This could result to brain trauma, losing a limb, losing an eye, or just straight up almost killing them. So players and NPCs are extremely squishy. One of the first nights, I blew out one of my players' spines.
Oh my god.
So their character was completely done. So it's like, well, I mean, your character's not dead, but their spine is completely blown out. And then unlike D&D, where you just gain all your health back by, you know, like a long rest or whatnot, your character is actually out of session for this amount of months. So you need to roll up a new character.
Lieutenant Dan,
then-
is that you?
Exactly. And then the next session rolls around, and then, you know, Lord behold, I get another crit, and I also blow up his second character's spine.
Oh my god.
So, you know, and a situation like that, going like, they're never gonna forgive me for this, for just killing their second character that they just made in the second session.
Oh.
So of course, you know, I had to fudge it, because they're going like, I don't want you to quit my campaign because the combat in this is extremely deadly.
That's that actually brings up another good topic we didn't even consider to talk about today, which is the death of a character, the death of a player. Because I don't mind my characters dying. I'd say at least half of the games that I've joined, my character has somehow died. But on the same token, I've been a part of games where the death of a character has slowly deteriorated the campaign or has removed that player from the campaign because they just didn't feel like making a new character and playing. They got so invested in the character that died, right?
That's one of the things I touch on in my session zeros, actually. In the rulings, I specifically touch on what happens if a character dies, what happens if we have a TPK. And what it boils down to is, like, obviously it's in the session zero, it's a moment for the players to be like, you know, provide their input and say what they think they would like to happen or what should happen in those circumstances. But the general scenario is when that happens is, when it happens, we're gonna have a chat. We're gonna see where to move, how we're gonna move forward from this point. That's me and those involved. So usually the player whose character bid it, possibly the entire group, if it's a whole thing, where everyone is invested in this character to some degree, which in longer term campaigns that's kind of bound to happen eventually.
That's a good idea,
Yeah.
though. Taking your players either probably after the session, right? Take them aside with everyone there and be like, hey,
Mhm.
this happened. It's a big deal. How are we feeling? Where do you guys want to go next, right? How do you want to handle this? That's I hadn't considered handling it that way. That's good insight.
As a player, I don't mind losing a character or my character being killed at all, because I mean I'll have another idea for another character, and as soon as like, oh, this character's dead, well, now I'm excited just to play this new character that I was thinking about, because of course like when I'm playing one, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start working on my second character because I'm gonna be excited about playing that one. So it's like whatever, it's like you know, if I'm not dead, I'm just going to play the character that I'm excited about. But, you know, they die. I just, like, get excited about playing this new character. So it's kind of whatever. It's just that the only thing as a DM or even as a player that I hope if a character is killed off is that it affects the party in some way. Because the last time I was a player, the DM did a great job of how my character was killed off and how it affected the party's morale through the rest of the campaign, because they died like halfway through.
Yeah.
And they still talked like the player character still talked about that character's death because it affected them so much.
That's cool.
For them. And yeah, and it was the first time I actually seen like a character death actually go like, wow, that was just it built up a lot of drama. So that's the only thing. If like you're gonna kill a character off, make it have some sort of impact to it, because then it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think from the perspective of a player, I'm kind of the same mind there. You know, if the dice just don't go my way as a player, you know, it is what it is. I'll take it. I will say I have one character that I am very picky about when I will play as this character. This is a very precious character. This is the best character. And you know, if I'm going into a new game with a bunch of people I don't know, I'm not gonna play that character.
Yeah.
It's a character that I will only play if I'm playing in a game with a DM that I know is going to do this character the most justice. So, but yeah, like, and even with that character, if it goes that way, it goes that way. But in that circumstance, I'll know this DM's gonna do me right.
I imagine a lot of GMs are more accepting of the fate of a character through the fate of the roles or what happens, simply for the fact that we're so used to our beloved NPCs dying.
We're so used to our
Overly.
incredible, super cool villain enemies getting obliterated
In one
Yeah.
turn.
not even a
Oh
full
my God.
round. It's like the rogue and the barbarian go and the fight is over.
Oh my god. Boop, it sounds like you've experienced that.
Yeah. I mean, not really, but I can imagine it happening very often.
All right.
Usually, actually, I'm pretty good at that. I've had the opposite happen where I accidentally planned an encounter that was supposed to be deadly, but still I made an encounter that was a little too deadly. Rolling too high and killing a player. Session 1.
Oh.
Oh,
that
okay.
that beats the shooting
Uh-huh.
the guy's spine out.
Good news, they weren't that invested.
Yeah, true.
I mean, I've had that kind of a situation. I had so I did a sci-fi game, right? And we were doing a re-flavored take on Lost Mine of Phandelver, an adventure that a lot of people who've played
Shut up,
D&D 5e might be familiar with. It's the kind of it's the original beginner adventure for 5e. So without giving spoilers, Because it is a completely reflavored thing, there was a lot of changes anyway. But starts you off at level 1. That's the important. In level 1 and 5e, you are incredibly. And
I'd argue level 2 also. Not until
Yeah,
3
level
does
2
it
as
feel
well.
like reasonable.
right. So the players got to this facility. They were investigating it. Rogue was off sneaking, doing rogue stuff. You know, like a good rogue does, or a bad rogue, depends on how you roll. But this rogue came face to face with the leader of these marauders that were hiding out in this old facility. And this leader of the marauders had a feature that on this normal type of creature, this would double the dice of their melee attack for the damage of it. I changed that to a very particular weapon that this guy had. It was a shotgun. And this rogue turned a corner. This guy was in their face. We rolled initiative. The rest of the party was somewhere else together. The rogue was alone. And the big guy went first with his shotgun, and we didn't go into the details of what happened, but it could very well be that this person got their spine blown out.
Damn, that's gonna.
It was level 1, double dice without even a crit. This rogue was done.
From here on out, once a campaign, there's gonna be someone who gets their spine blown out.
so yeah, it's a situation that happens a lot. And you know, that was a bit earlier on in my DMing, and so I wasn't quite as well versed in the ways of fudging of the dice and rules and such. So this rogue got obliterated, but even before then I always had the mindset of being ready to throw the party a bone if they want it in certain circumstances. So this player character had the option, because it worked with their backstory especially, to be cloned. And so they kind of had a benefactor, this super suave robot named what was he named? Quentin Oracle, known across the galaxy as the Oracle. Just the wealthiest robot you've ever seen, right? And so he had connections as player character, and the player was, drew up this character like one of the first actual artists that I met playing D&D. Made incredible art for their character, came up with this incredible backstory. It was super great, and so I talked to him after it happened, after the session. So we can work something out here.
Yeah.
At level 1 until level 7, really. Yeah, level 5, but really level 7 for most circumstances. You don't really have an option to bring someone back from 5.
Well, I think the message to GMs you out there, you're probably not gonna. It takes experience, right? I think to start gauging all these different variables that come into play, whether it be for characters dying, how combat encounters work, how you want to handle storytelling, how to figure out, do I have a group of players who are more interested in the kind of combat and board gaming aspect of D&D, or do I have a bunch of nerdy ass role players who want to, get their minds into this world that the GM is running? So, yeah, get into it. Get some of that experience. It is a lot of fun. Yeah.
Do the D&D.
Do it. Just do it.
Just
Don't ask
play
questions.
D&D.
Exactly.
Grab that starter kit and a couple of friends and just play.
Yep. And
Absolutely.
I think I heard a couple of you guys mention that, you got into GMing because you wanted to play it, but you couldn't find people to run it. So you're just like, I'll run it and I'll pull people in. Sometimes that's how it starts. And then you meet people and then they invite you to play in their games and you get to finally experience being a player. So, there's many ways about it. But in our last 20 or so minutes here before we close down our broadcast, to our guests, anything you guys would like to chit chat about? Any stories you'd like to share? Any questions you have for the group? We'll just kind of open forum it from here on out. Oh, not all at once now.
I think there's something.
Yeah.
It's on the spot here, man.
I know.
We got prep for this.
I got something.
You
Okay,
did?
so
Nice.
do any of y'all have like really memorable NPC that you just love using?
Oh, yes.
My answer is going to be my character in Jamie's thing.
Oh.
I have a little sort of like silver kobold who I put little references to here and there.
And his name is Scoot, and he's a strong kobold, and he's a swarm keeper ranger, and he has a little cestus that he keeps with him, a sensor, and if you know, like
the religious ones that they hold smoke in, and that's
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
his swarm.
Nice.
and that's his swarm. It's the dragon breath of his mom.
A silver dragon who he believes is his actual mom, which is up in the air whether or not that's actually true. The lore would be that my players slowly discovered was that he believed that he would grow up to be a full dragon one day, and that his mom is just asleep, when in reality
Aw.
it's very likely that she is that breath that he's holding so dearly is her last breath. Her
Dang.
last
My
gift.
heart-
Dang.
My heart is broken here.
Oh no.
And
No.
her last breath is his
Oh.
ranger swarm.
Damn.
For his swarm keeper.
That's cool.
And yeah,
That's super
literally, he's ice dragon. So yeah,
Yeah. I gotta say, Boop, I've seen a few moments of you running games, and this just kind of solidified it. But you do a fantastic job it's not even a segue. You just go from GM mode to character mode, like with no problem at all. It's pretty impressive.
is that? That's something I've never really struggled with.
Well, I mean, good for you. Humble
Didn't
brag
even know that was a
mode.
thing. I genuinely didn't know that was a thing.
I mean, I can be Scoot.
And I can be goofy next session.
Right?
A couple seconds
Oh
later.
my god, that's
Yeah.
so good.
See?
Incredible. And
What probably helps too is the contrast, because your voice is so like just neutral, like narrator GM voice. It's really good. I like it a lot. Effortless. Yeah, that's the word.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
I usually need to take a moment,
thank
clear my
you.
throat, and mute, and
Oh God, right?
remember who the hell I'm playing as again.
It's gotta like glance back at the character picture and be like, who is this again?
Right?
Which NPC out of the hundreds am I again?
Like, it's always been very easy because like I like to give people voices. For example, I guess if I had to give an example of this, earlier yesterday I was playing like two different NPCs. They were both like 8 members of law enforcement. One was the coroner in the morgue, and the other was a lead investigator
Yeah.
for Jack the Ripper's case. And the investigator sounded something like this. He was a very posh and proper man who did his best. And
Oh
the
my God.
investigator sort of, he was a little bit more timid, a little bit harder to read. And after you get to know each other, it becomes very easy to determine who's talking and who's not. And
Yeah.
even when I get lazy, sort of the voices are slipping a little bit. And yeah, I guess like you can still kind of tell just by body language, I hope. I try
Yeah.
to make people seem like themselves.
No, that's a good take. Yeah, but see, I imagine, right? Like you can get a good cop, bad cop in a room investigating one of the players, and you would just bicker between the two effortlessly, seamlessly, whatever the right word is. Whereas if I were to do that, I swear I would slowly start blending them together by the end of that interaction. So
Really?
yeah, kudos.
Huh.
No,
Also-
it's seriously
I just-
impressive.
Never considered that.
But
I'm
see,
sorry.
you said something that I think lends to it, which is that you play with voices. Like you like giving NPCs voices. Like it sounds like you practice voices, so you have more experience with that. Whereas I honestly never really started doing voices until I started running games and started making an attempt at, trying to make NPCs have a bit of flavor behind them. So my vocal cords are pretty shit, which is also why I don't sing on stream.
I mean, I don't have as much experience with voice acting as I do singing. I spent the better part of 10 years of my life studying to be a singer, only to decide that in college that I kind of hated doing it for a job.
Okay.
So.
Well, you got developed vocal
where that
cords. It
comes
helps.
from.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Practice.
I did
And
want
also-
to. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
No, you can go
also,
ahead.
What really helps sometimes is having
Different buttons that you can press.
that make you sound very different.
True.
How long did
I-
it take you to set up all of that sound stuff?
Not too long.
Oh.
Sound setup's not bad. Getting a bunch of like presets though, that takes some time to
Oh
play
yeah.
with.
The Stream Deck
I imagine.
helps, and I do have one of those.
Nice.
I used to have a really nice voice.
I used to have a voice.
I used to have a really nice voice.
have a nice voice once, and then
I-
all the smoking happened.
And then it all went to
Top tier
shit.
stuff. I had a super great voice mod. I don't even remember what program I used, but I made a little preset for Quentin Oracle, the robot that I mentioned before. That I no longer have those that software or those effects or anything, but it was nice while it lasted.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want, what I use is literally something called Voice Mod,
There's programs for it now.
and you can get some fairly decent robot filters.
And
Yeah,
some of them are a little bit more different than others. There's some variation.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
A bit of it. And if you know what you're looking for, you can get something truly sinister.
But, you know,
Dear God, don't. my
Let's
God.
go. Let's go.
I'm sorry, I like showing off.
It's so much fun. You got to have your
it's
moments.
cool.
Yeah.
If I could
I'll
just
link
jump
to it if you want.
back, yeah, absolutely. If I could just jump back though.
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh
See you
no.
guys.
Go ahead.
I wanted to show off this NPC turned future PC. And I am incredibly fortunate. I have an incredibly good friend who has given me the ability to use her incredible artwork that she made for this character.
Oh hell yeah, dude.
So
Pull this up.
I have proper artwork for this character and everything that I get to use on streams and stuff. Yeah, and the idea behind this character was the players in one of my games were going, they were in the big city, they lived there, right? They had home there and everything, and at one point they were like, hey, you want to go to an alchemy shop? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And I was using a resource for a city that had a lot of stuff in it, but in the moment I couldn't find an alchemy shop that I couldn't find what they were looking for, so I made something. Because this was a 400-page PDF that detailed every minute detail about the city. It was too much. But so I made up this shop called Raven's Court Arcana and Alchemy. And in this city, it was a part of the not only the Mages Guild, but also the Alchemist Guild, because the proprietor of this shop deals in alchemical goods, which she has been trained to create and sell and all that stuff, but also in magical items. So her shop became the place for look at magic item stuff as well.
You guys can really tell that Xavier here is a freaking NPC storyteller.
Also, the design wise, that gets a Lady Glacier approval.
Hell yeah.
I put
Well-
my stamp on that.
Speaking of
The-
Glacier approval, I saw you post recently asking, you know, what kind of attire that you should look into. You have a thing for kind of this, I don't know what, like Victorian kind of style.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You nailed it. Actually, Gothic Victorian.
Gothic, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
all about that.
So cool.
Right up your alley.
Um,
I'm a robot.
Poop.
Dragon, you and I were talking about artists. Was it during the hunt stream the other day?
I have no idea, dude. You
I
assume
think it
my
might have been.
memory goes past 24 hours.
we were talking about artists, and I was saying that one of the things I really like about, you know, one of the things I like to look for in artists I'm a commission is when they can take what you give them and if you give them the freedom to kind of go wild with the design a little bit. And that's actually how this design for Rita Nevermore came to be. This outfit, the only thing that's the same in this outfit is the fact that there's purple in it and the feather ruffle. And everything else, like this artist, a good friend of mine, just completely came up with it and made this incredible, fashionable design.
Yeah. There are artists out there that have the technical capabilities, but the creative ability is a different line, right? And I think it's super relevant for D&D because if you ever get D&D characters made, unless you're able to draw like a sketch yourself or get a buddy to kind of work with you to create a representation of what you imagine the character to be, the artist is really just working with some reference artwork that may or may not capture the vibe of the character but has elements of the character, and then also maybe a description or maybe a paragraph or something that if you're generous. So having an artist that can really take the idea and kind of vibe with the idea and understand it and create a creative something out of it is I have found less frequent because what is it? I started VTubing, streaming. I started looking into it roughly a year ago and started projects with artists for commissions, and I have found a clear divide with about the 20 or so people I've worked with that only maybe a quarter of them had the ability to create something without reference, if that makes sense.
So that's honestly how I actually designed Glacier. Is St. Crow is the one who actually designed. Like I had a rough concept of Glacier.
Yeah.
And then Crow kind of is the one that really developed it a lot. But then again, like the thing is like when I was looking through her stuff, I mean, she's the one that she did a whole bunch of D&D characters on TikTok and everything. So like her stuff is extremely good.
Yeah. D&D commission artists are especially good because they're constantly just playing with character ideas or doing commissions for character ideas. So I would say people who do D&D reference sheets and stuff have so much exposure to just a wide variety of directions and ideas from their players or people that come to them. They probably have a very large toolbox to pull ideas from and work with. So yeah, very cool. Well, anyone have any other ideas? If not, we're coming up to the top of our third hour here, and we might call it very soon.
None for me. Just thanks for being here.
Yeah. I think we are at the time. We'll keep it to roughly a 3-hour video for everyone to come check out after the fact. We are again on YouTube. So thank you to all of our guests for joining us. This was a lot of fun. I'd love to try entertaining the idea of doing something like this again in the near future, and hope you all enjoyed. Real quick, before we wrap it up, let's once again go through all of our guests. We'll go in reverse order this time. And shout out again where people can find you, what platforms are you on, and if you have anything you want to highlight coming up in the next day, what day and what is it? So Lady Glacier.
All right. Well, I'm Lady Glacier. I am on Twitch, TikTok, Twitter, so pretty much all the social medias with T's. I have a Pokemon Nuzlocke that I'm running on Thursdays. It's completely randomized, and I want to cry every time I turn that on because I'm getting destroyed by legendaries that just keep popping up for no reason.
Oh no.
Your chat's bullying you too.
Oh my god, they never stop.
Yeah. You've had some good clips come out of it though. It's been fun. I've watched a couple here and there.
Oh god. I'm glad that someone's watching.
Oh, I try. There's too many people though. I'm starting to lose track. But cool. Also,
so many people.
there is so many people. You guys have no idea. But yeah, for those catching this, the names that you see on screen are accurate for their Twitch links, and obviously in the description you'll find the direct links to their Twitter and Twitch as well. But next up, Jammy.
Yep. Once again, my name is Galaxy Jamwich, also known as Jammy. You can find me on Twitch and Twitter at Galaxy Jamwich. Nothing really big going on for me right now. All of my big stuff is going to be happening in mid-August, so do keep an eye out for that. And yeah, thanks again, Dragon, for hosting this. It has been really fun.
Hell yeah. Man, getting ready for the big reveal. I can't spoil it. You guys got to check it out. But the jam, it's getting thicker. No, that's not the right way to put it. The sandwich is getting low-fi. I don't know. It's getting.
I'm rebranding. I'm no longer.
It's getting shinier. It's getting shinier. All right, and Boopbot.
Hi, yeah, I'm Boopbot. I guess, just letting everybody know who I am. I am I do D&D. Thank you very much for having me. You can find me on my Twitch and upcoming events. I stream D&D every week, several times a week. More and more things are coming up soon. I have a couple different things I can probably shout out right now. I have a one-shot coming up on the 5th that'll include a couple of new faces, people I haven't really run D&D for in the past. And on the what day of the week is it? I also have a session 0 for Obscured Eyes, a new D&D game set in a sort of modern day Japan, happening on the 3rd, and on the 15th of August, I have a brand new session of a brand new session 1 of a campaign called The Maddening March. Beyond that, which is a Lovecraftian themed game. Beyond that, my usual campaigns are a Roman themed game on Sundays and a Victorian game on Thursdays. Jesus Christ, I have a lot of things. I have no free time.
Yeah. Anyone wants to check out someone who's just absolutely burying himself in D&D? Boopbot is the one to go check out. Let's go.
And if any of you guys, I'm also going to extend an invitation to you guys as well. If you guys want to ever be in a one-shot full campaign, literally anything, I'm down. I will make it work.
I love how you're like,
Okay.
I got so much going on, but I'm down for more games. Come on. Give me.
Shit. Speaking of more games, I totally forgot. I'm running a raffle.
A raffle?
Yes, I hit 600 followers on Twitch.
Hey, let's go.
I'm running a raffle on Twitter for anyone who wants to join a National Treasure themed D&D game.
Oh my
where
god.
you will be stealing the Declaration of Independence.
This is what you're
for
talking
the
about?
legally distinct Nicolas Cage, spelled K-A-J-Y.
Holy crap.
Wow.
Oh,
That
my
is
God, that sounds-
amazing.
Yes, that sounds.
will close actually on at midnight midnight EST August 1st.
August 1st. All right.
Feel free to just comment or DM interest and I will add you to the wheel, and you will be among the many who steal the Declaration of Independence, apparently.
Let's go. All right, and last up,
How's it going, everybody? It's at the start. So I'm Asbiel. You can catch me on Twitter at Asbiel_GM. As I said, it says it on the thing. Yeah, also on Twitch, just Asbiel there, because Asbiel wasn't taken on Twitch, but it was on Twitter. If you're, I'm the lone professional DM of the group, though these guys are all professionals in my heart. If you want to catch me on startplaying.games/GM/AsBL, if you want to check that out. I'm selling out. Give me money.
Jesus.
But not really. You can go there. You can check out my profile. See if you think I would be fit for running a game for you, and if that suits your fancy, then absolutely get in touch. And coming up, I'm gonna join these other guys in doing some D&D on stream. On the 12th of August, we're gonna start the first part of a 2-part little one-off as the intro to a new setting I've created called Elysian Twilight. I will be joined by Boopbot, Lady Glacier, Nefeltannen, and Galaxy Jamwich for that. And if that goes well, maybe in the future I will do. We're doing this as kind of the tier 1 of A5e, which is the 5e kind of reconfiguration that we're using for it. We're using tier 1 for this one shot. Maybe we'll do tier 2, 3, 4, or 0 in future one shots. That I'll get some other streamers to join in. So we'll see how it goes. But again, August 12th, August 19th are the planned dates for those 2 sessions. Keep an eye on my Twitch, on my Twitter. That's what I meant to say. Keep an eye on my Twitter. I will be keeping it posted there the week leading up. When I post my schedule, I'll have some information on that there.
Very cool. All right, everyone. Go check out our guests. Go show them some love. Make a comment wherever you find it. And let us know what you thought about this. If you'd like to see more, I enjoy bringing people together and trying to have these conversations and doing collaborations, whether that be over games or similar interests that we have. So come check out the Yasuhiro 0088 channel. I'm again Dragon Durant, and with that, we're out of here. So bye, everybody, and have a great one.
Have a good one.
Bye.